Tinge affected the curfew after over 40 houses were torched last weekend, leaving over 100 families displaced and 7 fatalities that have been reported in the area in the last 2 weeks. Police had already launched an operation to stop livestock thieves in the area. People in possession of illegal firearms have also been ordered to surrender them immediately or face the law. Area residents have raised concern over the attacks, hoping that the curfew will help manage the situation.
Yule kijana alikuwa kwa kasema, aliambiwa sisi ni kisasi tunalipisha na tutaendelea miezi miwili mpaka tulipishe ile watu yetu wameuliwa.
Alikuja hii nyumba ya jao wakafuja wakachukua jao. Sasa kuchukua jao ndio tena wakarudi huko nyumba penye tulikuwa tunaweka hiyo ng'ombe kubwa. Sasa wakapiga na mapaga.
Rift Valley Regional Coordinator George Natembea says all is set for the operation that will restore peace in the area.
Kutakuwa na vikosi vyote vya usalama vitakuwa pale in correct numbers, in the right equipment, kuhakikisha kwamba watu wanatolewa pale ili pia kukuwe na heshima kwa maisha ya watu na pia kwa mali ya watu.
Kwale County has recorded the lowest number of students who have joined Form 1 in the coast region. Data from the Ministry of Education shows that 30% of students who took the 2019 KCPE national exams are yet to join high school. Education CS George Magoha has asked education officers and chiefs around the county to ensure the remaining students are enrolled in high school in the mop-up exercise.
For the high schools that are now going on, because they have done reasonably well except Kwale, just at about 70%, and I can't understand why the technical institutions in Kwale cannot help us to move, because the government is one. Let us move the children back. Don't tell me that the children have no uniforms. Does the uniform lack? The uniform does lack. The government has provided books. We can agree that there's an overcrowding, but it's better to be overcrowded as children. Let all children go to school.
The Wire actor Michael K. Williams has died at the age of 54, police in New York say. Williams, who was known for his role as Omar Little in the hit TV crime drama, was found by family members at his Brooklyn home at around 2 p.m. on Monday. His death is being investigated as a possible drug overdose. And in business, Kenya has blamed persistent trade disputes among member states of the East African Community on incidents of dishonest traders breaking the rules of cross-border commerce. Adan Mohammed, the Cabinet Secretary for East African Community and Regional Development, said the disputes in recent months between Kenya and its neighbors have largely been as a result of non-conformity with controls and standards governing trade. And in sports, Alexander Zverev reached the US Open quarterfinals with a straight-set victory over Jannik Sinner. The German, who lost to Dominic Thiem last year's in New York, beat Italy Sinner 6-4, 6-4, 7-6, 9-7. Fourth seed Zverev saved 5 set points in the third as Sinner battled back before sealing victory on his own serve in 2 hours 28 minutes. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislators are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well. Well, Jeshi la Wokovu.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Nyeri.
It's kicking off this Tuesday morning with a little bit of traffic on Jogger Road. Most of the city seems to be clean and clear. Not too much of an issue getting in and out of the city right now. We will see that build up in a short while. What's your morning looking like? There's some traffic on Mombasa Road. It's already started to pick up between between the Weybridge and the SGR Mombasa Road. But nothing too crazy at the moment. We know for sure that it will pick up as the construction continues on the Nairobi Expressway. Where are we seeing some traffic in the other parts of the city? Coming out of Westlands, there it's already getting quite tight. Coming off the Thika Superhighway as well into the city centre. Not too bad actually. It looks pretty good as you're getting past Kasarani, Roy Sambo, then towards the Pangani underpass. It's smooth and clear all the way in and out of the CBD. It's going to be that way for a few more minutes, so now is the time to get out if you haven't. So we'll see what it looks like in a short while, but it definitely is picking up. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, that's how you get in touch with us, just in case you run into a pickle. Text us as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
8 minutes after 6. A very good morning to you. It's the 7th day of September 2021. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy Tuesday, wherever you are. Eric Latif and Ndu will call with you. C.T. Muga is away this week. Ndu,
yes.
How are you?
I am fine, thank you. Yes.
Very good to see you.
Same here. How are you?
Poa kabisa.
Poa kabisa?
Yes. What color is your dress?
Mustard.
Okay.
Yeah. You see it?
Yes.
Okay.
On a hot dog.
Okay.
You know, Kelly's song, you remind me of a Jeep. You remind me of hot dog.
I'm looking like a hot dog.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Huh? You're very hot this morning.
Right.
You had a good day?
Oh, that was yesterday, right? Yes.
Yeah.
It seems so far
That day was
away.
yesterday.
It seems so, long ago.
It feels like it has been like 17.
Okay.
Okay.
17 hours ago.
Yes. It was 17.
Last scene.
Wow. Wow.
Gee.
Welcome to the conversation. So a lot happened yesterday in the last 24 hours. Very many things have happened. In the last 24 hours, do we have more vaccines?
Something like that, eh?
Yeah. But there's the whole issue of the president chairing the National Security Council to discuss insecurity in the country. There's the Jubilee Secretary General, who is also a cabinet secretary, holding a press conference with his fellow Jubilee leaders, and where they are talking about one person, their deputy party leader.
Yeah.
Oh, this, that, this and the other. And as we talk about all those things, there's people who are looking for somewhere to sleep today.
Right.
Because they have been kicked out by marauding gangs who are heavily armed. Heavily. There are police officers who are being deployed to that area and they just don't know. They're saying goodbye to their family, not knowing whether this is their final goodbye. Because they're going to deal with people who are armed
and dangerous
and heavily motivated, and they seem to enjoy some kind of protection. So these are the things that are happening in the country. There are also people who have not had a meal since the last time we spoke in this same country. So the issue of food insecurity, at any one point in this country, somebody is food insecure. Actually, 2 million people are food insecure on any single day in Kenya.
and could die because they don't have a meal.
Yep.
So yesterday when we were talking about the situation being dire, that they didn't have a meal, so going into another day when they've not been able to get something to eat. And in this group of people is not just able-bodied Kenyans. There are the vulnerable who are already sick and starving.
Yep.
Children, young and starving. You know, that's the situation that we're looking at. Nothing different here in this country, not some far-off place.
So we'll have a conversation about food security in this country. What needs to happen to our food systems? What needs to change? What's working? What's not working? We'll be joined by the country manager of the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, who will be here with us at 7 o'clock to discuss this food security in view of what we are seeing in the country. And then at 8, we'll be talking about the headlines and why the headlines are the headlines. What makes the headlines? We promised to have this conversation yesterday. We'll be joined by the Standard Group's political editor at 8 o'clock to look at the headlines. Why does this story make it to the front page, and why do other stories start from page 7 of the papers? But let's start with our front page, as we always do, which is tracking the COVID situation in the country.
Sure. So let's look at what the numbers look like before we go into this vaccine in terms of what the update is from the Ministry of Health. 258 people tested positive for the disease from a sample size of 3,137. Obviously looking at a lower caseload because of the fact that we're coming off of the weekend. That puts the positivity rate from this particular sample at 8.2. So now we're looking at Kenya's numbers, upwards of 240,000 from cumulative tests of 2.4 million. It's interesting because what we're looking at then is from all the tests having been taken in the country, about 1% of them have come out positive. 10%. 10% have come out positive, right? So 240,000 from 2.4 million. Now, yesterday, Kenya then received another 880,320 doses of the Moderna vaccine. And they're saying that the rollout of the national vaccine campaign being led by the ministry with support from the World Health Organization as well as UNICEF, Gavi and other partners. So the first phase, the next phase is kickoff. They're waiting to still put all of this together before they now tell us, look, go to this place or another. But we did hear that Bagavi and Kenyatta National Hospitals yesterday were already administering the vaccines. And so this continues today and in subsequent days. Now, with this boost of just under 1 million, it will help quite a number. And we've already crossed the 5 million mark in terms of vaccinating the members of the population. So hopefully this
continues. We are well on course to the 10 million target by December.
Yes.
Okay. Now, KEPSA was coming in so that we don't just do 10 million by December. We actually try and do the 30 million by December. Are we on course for that?
It's another question. Not just yet. But I guess we'll wait and see. Then this KEPSA intervention, how far it will actually go and when it will actually kick off. It hasn't kicked off yet. But they were hoping that from these batches that were coming in as from Monday, then that intervention would take part from this provision. Okay? Just looking at world numbers, 221 million, an increase of about 1.5 million cases from the time we spoke yesterday. We're still looking at those numbers rising around the world. But, we're looking at Kenya now. We're in campaign season. We're not really bothered about social distancing and things like that. It seems as though with the advent of the vaccines that people now think, all right, we've got vaccines, we can be protected. Let's just do whatever it is that we please. About a year out to just less than a year to the elections. Campaigns are hotting up. We've seen the crowds that we saw over the weekend. We're likely to see more going into coming days. So COVID, for a lot of people, is a non-factor.
It is nothing.
No.
Just thought of that song. Remember that song that was just doing the buzz around the other day? An old Kikuyu song, Firirinda. Firirinda has a line there that says, Wagukuda ni akude. The one who is for drinking, apewe. And the one who doesn't drink, give them some tea. All right? I'm just thinking the same thing that politicians are thinking. Just go full throttle. Those who are to die, then let them
They'll
die. Those who will
Anybody
live
who's
will
to
live.
survive
Yeah.
will just survive, and we carry on with them.
Yeah. Firirida. 16 minutes after 6. A very good morning to you. We are live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Are you online? Let's see you, and we will shout out to you. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's cloudy and a bit of a sprinkle in Nairobi. We'll see lows of 13 today and highs of 22, currently at 15. In Nakuru, it's clear at 15, highs of 24, and bump back down to lows of 15. 14 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's raining this morning, going to highs of 21. Out in Kisumu at 19 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 18. In Kakamega, it's 19, clear conditions, highs of 28 and lows of 16. Looking into Mombasa, it's 23 degrees. Raining this morning, highs of 28, coming back down to lows of 23. And in Malindi, light rain at 25, going to highs of 28. Let's look out into Kampala, where this morning at 19, it's mostly clear, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is mostly clear at 20. We'll go to highs of 30. Lagos, rain showers this morning at 24. Highs of 29, back down to lows of 24. And Kinshasa is clear at 23. We'll see highs of 34. Today is going to be a warm day, and lows of 23. In London, 17 degrees and there's a haze over the city, highs of 28 and lows of 17. Paris is clear at 16, highs of 31 and lows of 16. In Beijing, 25 degrees and sunny well into the early afternoon, highs of 27 and lows of 16. And it's still Monday night in New York, however, 23 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 17.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
19 minutes after 6. A very good morning to you. So people are online, aren't they?
They are.
Many.
Quite a number.
Okay.
So let's see if we can get through it all, but we'll try. All right. Abdikadir Abdallah is tuned in this morning, and so is Sir Haran, tuned in from Kisumu. Good morning to you, sir. Brian Nyambe is tuned in from Zambia. Keep up with the great work, team. Asante Sana. Well represented, getting you loud and clear. That's Ruben Kamundi from Mombasa. And Kitsano Kitty Mokopi is tuned in from Botswana today. Phil F.A. Collins says, good morning. Tuju has a lot to say. CS without a portfolio. Wasting taxpayers' money, according to Phil. More on that. Titus Bambala Bashiwana tuned in from Zambia as well. Camera Citizen following, tuned in. Odero Jr. Good morning, Situation Room from the Great Wall of Kino. Eric, that dress is yellow. Achana na hiyo story. It's mustard.
I thought so too.
You thought
but
what
know,
too?
It's yellow. He's telling me she's mustard. Sheesh. Okay.
You need to get it right.
Okay.
Ed Gitonga then says, good morning, Watuwangu. Latif, being a man, we will never beat ladies when it comes to color.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
Mustard.
Okay.
Abby Jabez's daughter tuned in from London. Good morning to you. Waterman Jeffrey tuned in from Minneapolis this morning, and Benson Mukonka tuned in from Lusaka. Hey, folks in Zambia today are woke.
Zambia. Well, you need to go to Zambia.
We need to go to Lusaka.
Yes.
I think so. I agree. Let's just send that.
Hold a rally in Zambia.
Yeah.
They have a rich president. He can sponsor us.
We need to get the word in his ear. So you've heard Benson and Titus. You guys, can you send some word that want to come over?
There's some Kenyans. who'd like to come and visit Zambia. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, everybody. Uh-oh.
What happened again?
See, I forgot.
Okay.
Now that I've remembered, let me see. It's another day for another Maasai proverb.
Okay.
All right?
You're feeling the Maasai?
Yes.
It needs a clearing of the throat. Okay. The silence is killing me.
I'm choosing between one of these. Let me do a pull a city. Right. Let's do this one.
Okay, here we go. We have white smoke.
A proverb does not answer itself.
We do. Yes?
A proverb does not answer itself.
We do.
Are we there?
We the ones who answer it.
Yes.
Right. We do. You do. You decipher, translate for yourself.
Yes. Basically, just use the word answer here it means translate. All right? A proverb does not translate itself. Ni sawa?
Ni sawa.
Bas. 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 So, let's take a look at the headlines then. Yes.
So you do the thing.
I do the thing. This one of blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, just do it.
So, front page, two things. Tuju puts Ruto on KRA's radar. Now, it's Tuju who's doing KRA's work.
KRA had no idea.
KRA does not know its work. Jubilee Party challenges the DP to publicly declare his taxes following his admission that he owns 70% of the properties listed by the Interior CS, as well as 200,000 chickens, giving him an income of 1.5 million shillings every day through the sale of eggs. So, may it please Dr. Ruto to show young people the skills to acquire such property in such a short time. He should also teach us the clueless adults. For a man who's having trouble with banks, he needs to be taught. The Nation headline: Uhuru's allies take on Ruto over riches. Onslaught against the Deputy President William Ruto goes up a notch as President Kenyatta's Jubilee Party reveals plans to send state agencies to investigate the sources of his wealth, even as ruling party honchos plot to oust him as Deputy Party leader. Nyef, 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 nyef. Nyef, 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 nyef. Are we done with those headlines? Okay, now let's talk about the people story. Page 7 of The Nation, which gets a front page photo. Fleeing for dear life. There are two pictures here. And this is the front page photo in The Nation today. One is a tractor that is pulling
belongings.
Yes. And it's a family that's basically fleeing for dear life. A woman, an elderly woman, wearing a T-shirt written St. Martin. I don't know what that is. But she's holding something that has chicken. And these are her chicken. You can see next to her are water tanks. And behind her is a young man who is helping to offload what's been carried. And she's basically just looking distraught. And the photo says, this is Grace Wangoi and her relatives unloading their belongings yesterday at Olmoran in Laikipia North, Laikipia County. And then the second photo is a woman weeps as Kenya Red Cross officers evacuate residents at Kahuo in the constituency. The government has ordered a security operation and imposed a dusk to dawn curfew in the area. Now that is the picture on the front page of The Nation this morning. Right? So that gets page, what coverage? Page 7. Of course, that is the Mwananchi pages from page 7. What page is it in The Nation, in the Standard?
Well,
the Mwananchi story.
So where are we starting from here?
That one of Laikipia and
I'm
what's
still
happening
going.
in Laikipia.
I'm still going.
Umefika wapi? Umefika page 10.
Here we are. No, bado.
Iko page 12.
It's on page 12.
Full page on page 12.
Full page on page 12. Pain of endless cycle of killings in Laikipia as elections near. So we're looking at every sunset brings fear among the residents whose lives and property are on the line. Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho has warned politicians not to complain when the state gets tough. So that statement for me, very interesting. When the state gets tough. So the state can get tough. The state can do something about it, but it's kind of like holding back in the rafters, waiting to see what's happening on this stage. It doesn't make sense to me. That something can be done, but we don't, waiting to see how things will play out. But guess what's playing out? People are dying. People are losing their livelihoods. People are being pushed out of their habitat. Today, what stops the state from getting tough? And then here we see the security operation and the dusk till dawn curfew. Is it enough? Is it enough to really safeguard people?
Imagine. Just read the first 3 paragraphs of that story.
In 1 month, 12 people, including 2 police officers, have been killed by suspected bandits in Laikipia West and North constituencies. Hundreds of residents have fled their homes and are now camping in various parts of the constituencies considered to be relatively safe. Police deployment is also ongoing. Insecurity in the volatile area continues to escalate, with every sunset bringing fear among the residents whose lives and property, especially livestock, are now on the line. It is a situation that has forced the National Security Advisory Council to go back to the drawing board to change tact in dealing with the bandits. Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho warned politicians not to whine if the government adopts a tougher strategy to restore order in the area. Friday, Kibicho said herders had ignored the government's order to move out of private ranches. It's that thing you were saying yesterday. That, we're just watching government come in, have your meeting, then you go and then we do whatever it is that you want to do. They also don't see that you're serious. The perpetrators don't see that you're serious.
Those things you're doing in Nairobi, those are your things. The president chairs the National Security Council, okay? President himself. And this is the senior most security organ in the country. He chairs it. As he's chairing it, people are being shot.
As you're sitting down having a meeting.
Left, right, and center. People are just being killed. People are being evicted from their homes. Look at the pictures that we have in the Standard today. Residents of Ratia village in Laikipia West are overwhelmed by emotion after a bandit attack on Friday. Sosian Ward Rep Jacob Edung at the home of Zachary Nakuru, where 41 spent cartridges were recovered after suspected bandits attacked his home on Friday last week. 41 spent cartridges sprayed into a homestead. Dr. Kibicho is saying, don't make noise if we come on the ground. Don't make noise. The president is saying, act tough, and releasing a statement from Nairobi.
From Nairobi.
Yep. The statement that the Jubilee Party, the ruling party, is releasing is not that we are facing insecurity in the country and we are doing something about it. It is, no, go and tell KRA how much you make and how much you don't make. That is what is considered important.
It's ridiculous.
This is absolutely... Well, let's just breathe in, breathe out. Yegon is telling you, currently, no Kenyan paper will sell without Ruto on the headline. I can see Nduoko has joined UDA officially. Kumbe, that's it. This yellow color.
Come on, go and sit down, Joe.
Ni wheelbarrow. Yegon,
I'll find you.
Okay. Now, with that, you'd make front page. Just that.
Only.
Yes.
Okay. So that's all that's needed.
Yes. Okay. SpiceFM morning host
joins
the Hustler Nation.
Whoa.
Front page everywhere. Yeah. Let those who are dying in Laikipia die.
Which is basically what you're already saying.
Yeah. 6:30. Let's take a break, take a look at the traffic, and then we'll be looking at more headlines in the papers. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Gone are the days times when hiring should be about hitting the brick wall, because we understand how much it means to have the ideal candidate working for you and your organization. That's why at Standard Jobs website, we offer the complete employer dashboard that lets you interact fully with applicants, lets you track the full hiring process through a qualified specific smart search tool. What's more, we offer a full-on custom branded page that lets your company stand out with your own to choose custom page. So visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/jobs today and let's help you.
And just like that, it has built up. And we're looking at traffic coming in from Westlands into the CBD this morning. And also what was not on Thika Road now is a square in the middle. From Survey through to the Pangani underpass and then out towards Muranga Road into the city, it's already building up today. Ring Road and Gara has some of that traffic as well. And we're also looking at Jogo Road packing up quite some, especially right there around Makadara. Before and after, not too bad, but it definitely is picking up. It's amazing what half an hour can do on these roads. Mombasa Road also continues to pile up, as it does on Langata Road heading towards the Wilson Airport. Before that, it's actually not too terrible right now. So we're going to keep an eye on things and see how Tuesday morning is going to pan out on the roads today. Are you stuck somewhere? Let us know. Not to forget, the bypasses looking good right now. Southern, Eastern, Northern, out then connecting with Ngong Road into the city, as well as the Red Hill Link Road coming out of Westlands. There's an option for you to use, just so you don't get stuck on Wayaki Way. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, that's how you can get in touch with us this morning. Text on 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay, so let's look at that. Papers. Yeah?
So,
yes,
there's a story that's bothering me a little bit.
Okay.
Face of joblessness, young graduates reduced to quarry stone crushers because they can't find work. Again, another situation that's happening in the country. Meanwhile, as we politic and talk about things that on the face of it seem to matter, but if you go down into the depths, they really do not. So, the sound of hammering and crushing reverberates in the hot, stuffy air at a quarry in Tendwet Village, Kapuruso sub-location in Bomet East constituency. So the sun is scorching and a group of 11 workers are pounding away at stones. Tractors and trucks arrive to load the material and cart it away as individuals and firms involved in construction carry on with their work. The work at the quarry is not for the faint-hearted. The energy-sapping and laborious job usually attracts uneducated youth in the village. However, one of the quarry workers is a university graduate, while 4 have college diplomas. They have not been able to secure formal employment. Amos Muthui, 26, was a Bachelor of Science in Petroleum Chemistry from Kisi University. He's from Chepelwet Village in Longisa Ward. He said he had successfully applied for jobs and tried out anything that would have earned him money to keep going. He says he's repeatedly applied for jobs in the petroleum sector, and the police force and the Kenya Defence Force, but he's not been successful. When I graduated, I looked forward to getting employment at the National Oil Corporation, Kenya Pipeline Company, or the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority, but my hopes and dreams have collapsed, and he has worked at the quarry for the past 7 months. He says he tried to join the National Police Service and the military while in college, hoping to ease the burden his family faced in raising his college fees, but he was turned away. He thought if he had gotten employed, he would have used the salary to enroll at the university to complete his course, but failed in both attempts. After graduation, he attempted to be taken as a cadet officer in vain. And he said now he has given up trying and works at the quarry to fend for his family. A graduate in petroleum chemistry.
Let me ask you, okay, so there are two things that I'm thinking as I hear this story, okay? Number one is what CT keeps talking about here, about what we as a society view education to be. So once somebody has gone to university, that person, their family, and everybody else in the community they come from expects that you've gone to university so that you can get a blue-collar job. Or is it white-collar? Which is which? White-collar job, right? Mm-hmm. You will be employed somewhere. You will work in an office. Or you will work for an organization.
Yes.
And then there's this other school of thought that's been saying education is basically giving you a skill and knowledge that you can use then in other parts, okay? Which you can understand in some areas, in some courses, but in some others you'd ask yourself, when somebody is studying petroleum chemistry, how many places could they work in the country?
Sure.
So how many graduates of petroleum chemistry are we producing? And such related fields are we producing in the country every year? And are there job opportunities that match the number of people that we are taking into university and churning out of university? Because there is this, and then there are also the technical colleges that also have similar courses.
Sure.
So if this person does not get to work for these organizations he talked about, the National Oil Corporation, Kenya Pipeline, IPRA, an oil company, if they don't get to work for Tallow in Turkana, where?
Cooked.
Okay, well, maybe also any of the in the companies that produce petroleum jelly or work with petroleum products. There are many.
They're quite high.
But is there demand in the job market?
So is there demand for these jobs? So that's the thing. There's the expectation that once you go to higher, you go to a tertiary, then college, university, whatever, that you will graduate and get a job. There's that thinking.
Yep.
Then there's, okay, shall I go and get a skill, and then this skill I shall be able to use it later on. But I hear you that there's only a few. So we keep churning out the numbers, but is there
and they're competing for
they're all competing
a finite
for a
number
few,
of slots.
Exactly. For a few. And so somebody who studied, because this is academically intensive. It's heavy. Yep. Petroleum chemistry is not your run-of-the-mill, just something that you would just study and then you're done with. It's intensive. So then you finish that and now you're working in a quarry for not being able to find a job. So are we educating people who then will not be able to use their skill later on? Are we educating people for a job market that in terms of its offering is minimal? And I really do think that even as higher institutions of higher learning are putting together their course, what is the market? What is the market?
Yeah, what's the demand?
Why are we offering courses over and over for which there's no demand, for which there's only a handful of people who will be able to go and serve in that sector?
Or maybe just show the guy as we are taking you through this, as we are imparting this skill. These are the very many other ways in which you can apply this skill. Because if you just look at it, theoretically, this is what you're studying. I mean, it's about chemistry and petroleum chemistry. And then you've not been shown how else you could apply this. Or even, there could be very many other ways you could have applied it, because you're just looking at it and you're saying, well, I now know how to do these things. But then now you need to be empowered.
Sure, but look
if it's about starting your own, you can't just go and start your own company just like that out of the blues because you went and applied to the Youth Enterprise Development Fund and they give you 100,000 shillings. So you start what?
Yeah, what do you
making soap.
Yeah, because listen to
everybody
what
is making soap in this country. Everyone is making soap. They don't need this degree
to do it. But hear what he's saying. There was a handful of those companies, and since he had not been able to get any of those companies, he's given up.
Yeah.
And so that
he tried the police, he tried the military. I mean, those are the places that he could think of.
That's the extent of
get into the military cadet, nothing. Get police, nothing. So he's still looking for somewhere to work. He's still looking for something to do. It's this one.
It's heartbreaking actually as I think about it, because they're quite more. And then the others who don't get this opportunity to be in the quarry.
Yeah. And even these ones who have also gone, they have college diplomas, all right? So they got their college diploma. What college diploma? What did I say?
I don't
there are
know.
things.
Yes.
They got their college diploma. What can they do with the skill they've acquired?
Sure, that's it.
And now, are there many opportunities? If we don't have those things we call cottage industries, if we don't have those opportunities that can, you find somebody, yes, somebody was able to start a small micro enterprise, and then they're able to hire this person and they work together, then they can grow together. So you just need somewhere where you can practice your skill and then be able to start your own thing.
Exactly.
But those opportunities are not
Few
there.
and far between.
Why? Because we're selling chicken.
Touche. Mm-hmm.
As we're talking about all that, page 14 and 15 of the Standard this morning is all about CBC as well. Okay? And there's been whole debate about CBC and the struggles of CBC. CBC nightmare giving parents sleepless nights. Touted as the most ideal education system in the country, the competency-based curriculum appears to be giving many parents sleepless nights. 43-year-old David Andati, whose daughter is in grade 5 at a primary school in Vihiga, finds CBC not only expensive but cumbersome. He says it's quite a struggle keeping up with this new curriculum. There are many textbooks required. The system should have been made affordable given the hard economic times that parents are going through. So far, he has bought 20 textbooks and at least 15 exercise books for a grade 5 pupil. I just bought some of the books listed here because I don't have enough money to buy all of them at once. He had another child in Standard 7 and under the 844 system, which he says is much cheaper compared to this CBC thing. We thought the government had the intention to make education affordable and accessible, but the introduction of CBC could just make it hard for many struggling parents to educate their children. Another story here of Titus Obonyo, a border rider based in Mearstown, Kakamega County, says the burden of assisting his child to do the homework is overwhelming. The homework is complicated because the style of teaching and pronouncing words is different from the 844 system. Even pronouncing words.
Really?
So boda is not boda.
Maybe it's... I think that may be a bit of an exaggeration, for goodness sake.
You know, like, apparently teacher said...
It's motorcycle.
Motorcycle, not boda. The homework is complicated. Yes. Janet Shikuku from Webuye sub-county in Bungoma says CBC has made life hard. According to her, it's always an uphill task to help her son with his homework. It never used to be like this. Children used to read on their own with fewer learning tools, but CBC appears to have come with many challenges for both learners and parents. So many parents are basically complaining, why are we doing the teacher's work?
Yeah, we're being involved in this process. I don't understand. I've sent the child to school. Then you send him back to me. All of us work together. I don't understand. No, but it's true. It's actually quite laborious for a lot of folks. Like last evening, I got this letter from school. Dear parents, I hope it serves you. I hope
this email finds you well.
It doesn't. Every term, children do a project, blah, 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 enhancing the knowledge on a particular topic, developing creativity, developing independence, creating a bond between parents and child. The following are the guidelines. Assist your child to make musical instruments of your child's choice. Kindly use locally readily available child-friendly material. Please do not buy the musical instrument.
Right.
Be as imaginative and creative as possible.
Right.
Parents are required to give guidelines and supervision but minimal assistance. Kindly label your child's musical instrument. As if that's not enough, kindly make 3 different musical instruments using locally available material in the next 1 week.
Don't buy.
Don't buy. Look around your house and make a flute.
And also, it is of your child's choice.
Yes.
Now, if your child wants a piano, my friend, and they've told the teacher,
I'm making a piano.
My choice is piano. Mama, make
Where
piano.
are we starting from?
Make piano, mama.
Jeez.
Teach your child. Those things, let me give you a leakage. Readily available material. Mouth.
You take it everywhere you go.
That's a musical instrument.
They want you to use material to build.
This is it. Hands. Make a musical instrument.
They want your child to fail.
We were taught this as guys in school.
I'm telling you, this thing is having a lot of people struggling. So now think about those parents who don't come home by the time their children come home. And this thing is supposed to be supervised. Look, I am all for development development-oriented curriculum.
And participatory learning.
I am all for it.
Right.
But let's be honest, it's not going to be balanced. There will be some children who will not be able to benefit because their parents are not there, because they're out seeking this, livelihood. In a balanced economy would be great.
Do you think it's the teachers who are not understanding this thing?
No, I think the teachers are going along with it because it has been said, look, this is how we're going to be doing the curriculum.
Teachers are not giving their pupils assignment. Teachers are giving parents homework.
Yeah, and this letter goes to the parents, for example, says you do this.
Yeah, so I think the teachers are not getting, there's a breakdown in communication somewhere there. The teachers don't understand. They think that because now we want parents to be more involved, it means that every day you send a child home to go and sit down with a parent and do something. There's a project that's required every week at the end of the week, and do not go and buy this material. Oh, it'll make it with your child. So have you as a parent, as a teacher, taught the child how to make this thing?
No, you go do it at home.
Because if the kid was coming home and saying, I was taught how to make a flute from home and I require this, just help me get this material, that is something different.
Nope.
But now you are the one who's doing the homework.
Doesn't.
If the child gets 0 in an assignment, who gets the 0? Is it you or the child?
Oh, the child. You finish going to school.
The other aspect of this, which is also coming out very strongly, is the inequality that it's exposing. Because you see, many times when the teachers are sending the children home with these assignments, there's a requirement here that the parent will be able to afford A, the very many number of textbooks and the exercise books that are required. B, that the parent will be able to afford. Now, not many parents are going to be able to afford to do all these things, even if the parent is available. But are they able to afford it? Is it more costly? And if it's more costly, is it then locking out very many who would not ordinarily be able to access this education?
Look, Eric, the number of people who, when you're talking about, form this and color it, etc., what are we talking about? It's in terms of percentages, it's a few because in your circles, it could seem like, okay, yeah, it's not a big deal. We're going to cut up some manila paper and color it, whatever, do something. But not many people have access to these materials because it is expensive. You may think, all right, manila paper, 50 shillings, not a big deal. We can put this thing together. There are many folks who can't do this, and the majority of them cannot.
I saw a tweet by the Professor Lukoya Twali the other day talking about CBC. And let me just look for it. Because he was talking about this. He was raising the issue of the inequality that the CBC is exposing. Hey, Professor Lukoya Twali, you've just been retweeting everybody who's retweeting. Sheesh. So I'm looking for the original tweet. I can't find it. Surely buena. Okay, so he was on a TV interview last night, so that also was something that was tweeted heavily. But basically, he was raising the concern about the cost of CBC and whether we have factored it in terms of how expensive then it's going to look like for those who are. I'll find it after this break.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a long one. It's a long one. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Oh, John has helped you. There are very many things that you can do to local musical instruments.
Well done. Like tin can drums and
See?
Spoon. What is that?
Spoons. You can
Maracas.
make a spoon.
Hey.
Yes. But you've been told to do not Google. Do not buy. Use locally available things in your house. Okay. So you can use many of these things, right?
Yeah. Spoon, maracas. You'll see. Stress.
Thank you.
the political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the situation. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
All right, it's
Nairobi.
9 minutes to the top of the hour. Okay, so there's another story here that was quite interesting. Not interesting in that way, but interesting in a very annoying way. The county government of Nairobi has distanced itself from poorly constructed building that collapsed in Kikuyu sub-county. Kikuyu sub-county is where? That is Nairobi still.
Yeah.
Is it Nairobi or Kiambu?
Kikuyu sub-county is not in...
That's Kiambu.
It's Kiambu. It's not in Nairobi.
Yes. Through housing executive Mogo Kimani, the county said it warned the owners of the building, George Kamau and Florence Wairimo, to stop the construction in January, but they defied the order. He said on January 18th, the county government wrote to the owners warning that the building was being constructed without the relevant approvals from the county. Yesterday, Kimani ordered the immediate demolition of that building. Should you fail to undertake the demolition with immediate effect, the county government will enter into the said premises and undertake the demolition at your cost and without further warning. That is how the letter read. This came as demolition of the building entered the second day on Monday morning. Tenants who were residing in adjacent plots were advised to seek alternative shelter until the area is secured. That building tilted on Friday and it was all over social media. It crumbled as residents watched. Workers on site had taken off. Nobody was injured in the incident. Now, here is what I'm wondering. On Friday,
the building was?
The building started tilting.
Yes.
Immediately, we saw NCA, National Construction Authority officers on the ground. No. This building did not have the requisite permit from us. It was not supposed to come up. The Kiambu County government is here now saying this building was being constructed outside our mandate.
Yep.
And in fact, we warned them in January, stop building that building. Where? And they walked away. The developer allegedly continued building and ignored the order
to stop
building. NCA is coming now as the building is tilting and saying, no, but this building does not meet any of our standards. In fact, this building...
Where were you?
We are in September. And we're talking about January, and the building has gone up so many floors. Can you imagine if people had died?
So
and the authorities are just, everybody is washing their hands and saying, Mimi, by the way, Missy Jui.
I told them not to build.
Absolute nonsense is this. Why do we have a department for infrastructure in Kiambu County if it doesn't do its work? Why do we have the National Construction Authority if indeed it cannot enforce?
You know what I think?
Yes.
You know what I'm seeing? Yeah. Is that there's no progressive accountability. That we have people then shoving responsibility after the fact. A lot of work is actually done after the fact.
Yes.
A lot of work. When things have already gone south, a building has fallen here or there, a school has collapsed, that's when you find, okay, hold on. There was somebody who was actually, number one, in a position of oversight. There was somebody who was supposed to be doing the checks and balances. But this comes after the damage has already been done. So yes, imagine.
And nobody's taking responsibility and saying, you know what,
everybody's...
this happened. Actually, we warned them in January. They didn't. We should have gone back there to ensure that they have stopped construction. We did not. And so I take responsibility. No. In fact, the letter now is tough sounding. If we don't demolish that house, we'll come and demolish it and you will pay.
I've thought of something. Have you ever heard that these task forces and these committees and these multi-agency what are formed in the course of progression?
Nope.
It's when something has gone
to come and
wrong.
Probe after.
So experts come together to come and tell us what the problem was. Meanwhile, this thing is ongoing we can put in the checks and balances along the way. We can make sure that everything is going right. We can stop things if they're not. We can make sure everybody's doing their job.
Let me tell you. You speak to any developer in Nairobi, in Kiambu, in any county. Let's just deal with those. Nairobi, Kiambu, especially these ones that are in the peri-urban. There is no way a building will get to first floor and Kajo guys are not there. No way. No way you will continue constructing that building without Kanjo guys passing every week.
They're aware.
They are aware. They know what they do. They receive. There is no way this building was there in January, February, March, April, May, June, in Kino. Here, I can bet you the council was absolutely aware of what was happening. They were coming, the inspectorate was coming, they were seeing the construction going on. They knew that they have not licensed. They knew that this thing is not up to par. They knew.
They saw it leaning. And
they knew. And Mr. Mogo Kimani, the housing executive in Kiambu County, this is so absolute BS. He knew. In fact, I hope the ESCC can actually do something about such things. This is just lack of ethics.
Because more people
now, can you imagine the neighbors? Listen to this paragraph. Tenants who are residing in adjacent plots were advised to seek alternative shelter until the area is secured. Do you know what that means? That you start looking for
everything and start looking for
another house. Oh, leap a deposit because your current landlord cannot give you that deposit.
No, because where are you going?
Go look for money, leap a deposit, 2 months deposit. Oh, the landlord that you are living, they constructed theirs properly. Theirs is not tilting, but they are losing tenants for a number of weeks or months. Because once a tenant has left, why are they becoming back?
They're not coming back. I found another option and I've gotten comfortable again. I'm not
Loss of
back.
income, disrupted lives, because somebody somewhere was sitting and just smoking.
Do you know? There's nothing as painful as a loss over something that could have been avoided. It could have been avoided. We didn't have to be here. It's not as though it could have been avoided. It is regrettable. It is very, very painful. And here we are. Now, can you imagine if people had started to inhabit that building?
And then it starts tilting. And then you're called, Mama Nani, nyumba inaanguka. You're here.
You're here.
Your kids are in the house. You left at 3 a.m. to come to Spice. People are joking. And you will see that this one, no action will be taken on anyone.
No.
NCA will not be held responsible for this. The county government of Kiambu will not be held. Nobody. I'm assuming that this is Kiambu, right? Kikuyu sub-county should be Kiambu.
It's pathetic.
Angela says, good morning. Having gone through 844, I'm willing to give CBC a chance for my kids. Yes, it should be customized to fit our context. Going back is not an option, okay? But Rachel is saying parents will also get CBC certification by the end of this curriculum.
I'm telling you, we're all going to school together.
The elephant in the room is inclusivity in this curriculum. What will the outcome of students going through this curriculum in both the towns and our rural schools look like? That's true. That's true. The CBC discussion is a good one to have. Is it being implemented just the same way with that government attitude of, you know what, you start it. Just start. Shida.
Along the way, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out. A very good morning to you. Let's talk food security in the next hour. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Thousands of students who are eligible to join universities after taking the KCSE exams are still unaware of their fate so far after failing to receive letters to join the universities despite the registration process starting yesterday. This is even after KUPS officials promised a smooth transition from secondary to university and colleges.
I wish to assure you that the board has carried out this placement process with utmost transparency and accountability, guided by merit and the choice of the student.
We enable applicants to align their selection of courses with their interests based on their performance and career aspirations.
Sadly, some of the students were forced to use letters from the COOP's website to report and found themselves at a crossroads after being asked to show an official letter of enrollment. This comes as it has been reported that many students have not yet received national IDs, despite it being important for them in order to actually apply for the HELB loan. HELB CEO Charles Ringera, however, says 3.2 billion shillings has already been allocated for funding for new students, although only 27 students have applied for the fund so far. He said the earliest the money will be disbursed in students' accounts is next month. Deputy President William Ruto has been warned against thinking that he has a strong following in the Mount Kenya region. The head of the Service Party, Mwangi Kiunjuri, has reiterated that local leaders who support him shouldn't be used to represent the entire central region. Kiunjuri has also advised Ruto to unite with other leaders and their parties if he wants to get 100% support.
Huwezi sema that I have now scaled the mountain. It is too early to say that you have scaled the mountain. The mountain is so high. There is also ice up there. The weather can be very rough, and therefore it is good for you to continue wooing the people, but don't think you have succeeded. Because the others who are following you, who knows that it is very difficult for them to scale the mountain. And what they are doing, they are bringing all the sheep together. They are trying to seek support from all of us. Na hayo ndiyo tumekuwa tukisema na kuendelea nayo mbele.
His remarks come at a time when NARC Kenya leader Martha Karua has hinted that they are aiming at calling for all leaders regardless of their affiliation for a meeting in a bid to achieve unity.
That we are going to reach out to every elected member of parliament in Mount Kenya region for the next meeting, which we hope will be in the coming week at a date and venue to be announced. They'll all get invitation. We want our leaders to be present in the next meeting as we deliberate on the issues that are going to be our wish list to any candidate.
The government has collected samples of herbal medicine in Kakamega for lab testing. Chief of Researcher at the National Museum, Evans Daraja, says the samples were being tested for efficacy in treating COVID-19 and related complications. He said they were also interested in establishing the right dosage for the herbal supplements. The effort comes as the country is battling with the virus and Kakamega County's oxygen plant collapsed, even as the county hospital has reported a rise of COVID-19 patients who need healthcare and oxygen support. Hundreds of traders and business owners encroaching on 9 road corridors in South Bay, Nairobi have less than 3 weeks to find an alternative location for their businesses. This follows a 30-day notice by the Kenya Urban Roads Authority to the traders to pull down all structures erected along the roads, failure to which the properties will be demolished. The roads include Kapiti, Aoko, Plainsview, Mwangeka, Sore, Mchumbi, Daidai, Mukenia and Mariakani. The leaders of a military coup in Guinea have promised to set up a transitional government of national unity after ousting President Alpha Conde and dissolving his cabinet. Sunday's coup, in which Conde and other top politicians were detained or barred from travelling, is the third since April in West and Central Africa, raising concerns about a slide back to military rule in a region that has made strides towards multi-party democracy since the 1990s. The takeover was widely condemned by international powers, placing pressure on the new military leaders to offer a plan beyond the topping of the old order and to reassure investors that Guinea's significant oil exports would not be cut. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Okay, so we need to know this morning that the expressway along JKI Mlolongo is going to have some more interruptions, especially this week. They're looking at installing concrete hoarding. They're looking at changing the route towards the CBD. So you're going to expect some more traffic along that road in the coming days. So be ready for that as more of the excavation continues. And we're also seeing that has started this morning already. So quite a lot of traffic on Mombasa Road today, inbound to the city. And folks are trying to see if they can use the Eastern Bypass out then towards the Thika Superhighway. You're going to get on the Thika Superhighway, however, and then just around Survey there towards Pangani, there's going to be some heavy traffic, or actually it already is there, and it's moving out into the city. We're seeing traffic coming out of Westlands. Limuru Road is already packing up quite some. Kiambu Road is an absolute mess, just in case you wanted to know. In the CBD, it's also filling up quite fast. And traffic on Langata Road is a story for today. Quite heavy as you get to the Wilson Airport, then out towards the Timor roundabout. So we continue to see traffic build up. We're in the middle of traffic hour right now. It has already begun. And we'll see that continue for a couple of minutes, actually for a couple of hours moving into the morning. Are you stuck somewhere? Have you found a good route that folks can use? The ICD route I hear is giving us some good vibes this morning. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's
the
7 minutes
only
after
way to
7 on the
start your
7th
day.
day of the 9th month of 2021. A very good morning to you. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the second hour. In the room is Eric Latif and Ndu Oko. C.T. Muga is away this week, but we have a guest who's joined us now, and his name is John Masharia. We'll introduce him shortly after reminding you today's proverb, which is a Maasai proverb. A proverb does not translate itself. Simple, not many stories. Oh, I don't know if you do a proverb, you go there, you try and translate it, you will not be. No. A proverb does not translate itself.
You do.
Period.
Okay. Done. Got it.
That's it. All right? It's a Maasai proverb. One of the Maasais will call in and say it in Kimasai.
Can I tell you something very quickly?
So you tell me.
About the expressway. I think it's important. So there's a public notice from the Kenya National Highways Authority. Try to give that information through the traffic. However, important to note that, so last week there was a lot of suggestion. Can we have an additional wagon in with the train leaving that area going into the city? It would seem as though they've introduced an additional wagon effective today to offload travelers from the road, because the traffic on Mombasa Road has really been quite something. So the management has undertaken to secure all vehicles parked at the Syokimau train station as the vehicle owners transit to the train en route to the CBD. So an additional wagon has been added as from today. Traffic congestion will still be experienced, and those include areas currently under intervention as indicated below. Because of the erection of certain parts and excavation continuing on certain service lanes, expect additional traffic today on Mombasa Road, and that's outbound because the service lanes now have been shut off.
So the engineers are telling us there's going to be traffic.
Today. Yes. They're telling you today that it's going to happen today.
Because what's happening?
So
what are they doing?
Previously, you had the 3 lanes having been reduced to 1, and that was inbound. Now, the service lanes are being excavated to help for the paving of the expressway. So now that is outbound, but it was an option for folks who were inbound and only had 1 lane. So now that option does not exist anymore. The solution that they've now given you is to offload traffic and you use the train to go to the CBD.
Okay. Have they given a good way to enter to the Syokimau train station?
No, it's guess and go. Where you find, you enter.
So if you're coming from the Syokimau side and you need to cross over to the other side to board the train, how do you go? Have they indicated, are there good directions being given? Is there a nice way that you can go? Oh, yes.
Sheer luck and the goodness of the Lord.
Vuka pandeile.
Yes. That's really what it is. You'll find your way.
Vuka pandeile.
You'll find your way.
And if you're a pedestrian, is there a place that they've demarcated. This is where pedestrians can walk and cross over from the Syokimau side and Gateway Mall side to the, if you want to go and board the train, because we've introduced a new. Sort yourself out. Engineering is a good.
Telling you, it's
engineering.
Wonderful. Engineering is you say, you know what? Go in there, you figure it out and come out on the other side.
Wow.
If you end up alive, well and good. If you don't, well, c'est la vie.
The people who actually came up with engineering, if they woke up today and they found our engineers at Kenha, they'd be like,
I'm going back.
Good job, you guys. Good job. You really understood this discipline. Engineering is about creating problems and confusion. Very good. Not what we were taught about creating solutions. Engineering and solutions.
But what they've told you is to continue exercising caution and road courtesy while driving, as that has helped to manage traffic better. They are committed, however, to ensure a timely completion of the Nairobi Expressway and the delivery of the best quality services to customers and stakeholders at all times.
Very good. Very well said. Asanteni sana.
Right.
September 10th is 3 days away. What have they said they're going to do in September 10th?
September 10th, they would have a partial opening of the road from JKIA to Mlolongo, partial restoration, and by the 30th, it will be fully open.
Okay.
Let me stop there.
So we have a comedy show coming up on KTN, and this is partial opening of JKIA Mlolongo section. This will be live. It will be televised. John Masharia. John Masharia is the country manager for the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA. Asante sana for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest comedy show. Hey. Now, we're going to talk about food security. Okay? Let's forget about the roads.
Okay.
Let's talk about our stomach. Because if nothing else, at least let's eat. However, we're starting from a bad point because as we speak, how many? Close to 4-5 million Kenyans are facing starvation today. At any given time in this country, it's estimated about 2 million people are food insecure. They don't have access to clean, affordable, and
sustainable
safe food.
sources of food.
Now, what does that say about our country?
Thank you, Eric. I think in terms of numbers, I think the number of people who are going through acute hunger are actually about 3.6 million. And we must take that problem in context because it's a symptom of certain issues that are happening within an ecosystem or within a food system. And the first thing to talk about and to remember is that Kenyans, as much as you're saying it's a comedy show, we grew at a rate of about 1 million people a year.
Yep.
So by 2030, we'll possibly have 10 million more people that we need to be feeding. And in the same context, our food production has not necessarily caught up with the rest of the world. So if you think about maize, I think on average our national production is about 1.5 metric tons per hectare, vis-a-vis countries that are producing 5 to 8 to 10 metric tons per hectare. The other important thing to note is that this decade, the biggest conversation also in this decade is about climate change. And Kenya as a country has not been spared from the vagaries of climate change. So we have increased weather variability. So we are seeing increased floods. We are seeing increased droughts. But we've also seen increases in pests and diseases. The whole of last year, beyond having COVID, we actually had to battle a locust invasion that actually was in about 27 counties in this country. The other important thing is to think about the relationship with our environment. We are seeing increased acidification of our soils. And also just to note that we're also seeing that more people are converting farmland into real estate. And there's a very ripple effect in terms of food security. Some time back, a group that I was in purchased about 80 acres of land. And we then asked the question, what's the cost? How many plates have we taken off the table?
Yep.
And at the time, by buying 80 acres of land, we are looking at maybe 300 people will not be able to have maize again on the table. And the last thing to think about is about the interconnected nature of agriculture. To produce food, you need to have land, you need to have a good environment, but you also need to have good trade policy. You need to have access to finance. You need to make sure that farm organizations are actually working for the women and youth. So there's a question about inclusivity. And in that regard, we then need to think about how we build back better. but build more resiliently and inclusive food systems that are not only providing, food for all of us, but are also environmentally sustainable, but are also providing, jobs and incomes for our women and our youth.
You've used some two buzzwords there, build back better, and then there's food systems. Now we've heard of the build back better. What are food systems?
So the food systems conversation, it's not necessarily a new thing. It's just a new way of thinking. So if you think about Kenya and you think about the 7 things I've just mentioned, the question is, how are we working together with all these things that are working in parallel so that at the end of the day, they're all working together for a farmer? Right? When I was just coming in, we were talking about, sometimes you have traction in one truck, then you have reversals in another truck. A couple of years ago, you remember the conversation about the warehouse receipting systems.
Yep.
And at the time, Agra was actually piloting that particular system together with a number of banks and a couple of millers. But in the same year, we had the interest rate caps. So whereas you could actually lend out at maybe 13-14% for a load of cargo, when the rate caps were brought in, the first thing we saw is that there was a reduction in the amount of credit that was made available to agriculture, not just to the SMEs, agribusinesses, but also to farmers. But that meant that, the agricultural sector was being starved of cash. And a lot of that cash, if you remember, went into real estate. And we then saw a boom across the country where you had all these flats were, being made available for sale. Now, let me also give you another interesting statistic, Latif. This country produces about 38 million bags of maize. But we consume annually, right? But we consume about 52 million bags of maize. But the scientists tell us that our post-harvest losses are at about 30% of the 38 million bags that you have produced. So ballpark figure, 10 million bags actually do not get to the market. But then we have 3 to 5 to 6 million people who are going hungry. And if you do your math, actually what we are losing could actually go to feed the people that we are talking about. Right? So, and that's an existential problem that we've seen that needs to be readdressed.
Why? Can I jump in there, John? Why is that much being lost? It's a lot. It's a lot. Why is it being lost? And then other efforts are being made, and what efforts can actually be made to mitigate that particular issue?
So there are plenty of efforts being made, and I think there's a need to reevaluate the statistics we have. And I believe the situation is better, but it's speaking about the value chain investments you put into place. And one of the things about agribusiness, when you set up a processing facility, you're actually putting together a business that is going to convert something from raw material into a commodity that lasts longer. If you think about a banana, within 30 days, it comes from being green, to yellow, to being something else. Now, what you need to have is a cold chain that will actually extend the shelf life of that particular banana. If you think about the horticulture value chain, I think the loss levels are almost at 40%. But it's because of how many cold chains do you actually have, or how many pack houses? And that's why you need to laud the efforts of the likes of Professor Kivuda Kibwana, who have actually put together a pack house that is able to make puree, is able to actually store much better. And those kinds of things make life better. The other important thing is for Kenyans to understand and farmers to understand is that we need to have better relationships with our soils, with our water, and with our environment. For the longest time, the fertilizer that was made available was a standard one, right? Which then meant that you're mining certain nutrients from the soil without necessarily replacing them or without necessarily asking the question, is this fertilizer the best for this crop, right? So what we are trying to encourage and to encourage within the food systems conversation is that we need to have crop-specific but agroecology-specific fertilizers, because the ecosystem in Nyanza is not the same one at the coast. But then you also need to have nutrient-efficient seed varieties. And what that means is that you need a variety that is going to consume less water, but give you a much higher yield. That way you're building, a resilient food system. And it's also to talk about the question, on the front end, you're thinking about nutrition. And because of nutrition, people are gymming more. And then you're now talking about portions. But at the far end, the farmer is saying, give them more food. And on the front end, people are saying, I need
Eat
to
less.
start eat less.
Yeah.
So what does eat less mean? It means that we need to have, yes, eat less for nutritional purposes, but diversify your diet.
Yeah.
Instead of maize, do millet. You know, take more vegetables. And that then also reduces strain on certain value chains. And if I might quote Piers Bogger, you depoliticize one value chain, which is
the maize one.
Which is the maize one.
But there's a question you still haven't answered, John, which is this 30% post-harvest losses for maize. What causes that? That's a very, very huge percentage.
So let's put it like this. The loss, post-harvest loss in maize, and not just in maize, I believe, I think it's also in the pulses value chain. It's not in one particular area. It's actually across the chain. So if you think about a farmer and their drying practices, certainly you'll see some level of loss there. If you think about transportation, and you're transporting in gunny bags, there's certainly a level of loss that is coming in there. Then if you think about the milling process, there's loss coming in there. But it's also important to realize the amount of loss that is occasioned by aflatoxins. Remember, for a while we used to procure maize from smallholder farmers. We put it in silos in Nairobi or in other areas, and we bought it at above market rate. Then 6 months later, someone comes and says 50% of this maize in this particular store is not fit for human consumption.
Yeah.
That is some serious amount of loss, right? And it's really about the practices and the efficiencies we want to drive within the maize value chain or within the pulse value chains. The absence of those inefficiencies are what are actually creating this amount of loss. And like I said, at some point we need to reevaluate the data to actually know if you're making significant changes, because there has been a growing number of mills in the country, which certainly means that more is being taken from the farmer, is being taken from the value chain, and is being processed for human consumption. And the ministry has also done well in passing the blended flour bill, which then means that within your packet of ugali, you should be able to have some millet in there. And I think right now, if you go to the supermarket, there's loads of fortification. And that begins to stem the issues of post-harvest losses.
I mean, I'm hearing all these things that we're talking about, and we're saying, okay, these are interventions that can, hold here and there. But what seems to bother me is that when I hear about famine in certain parts of the country, which we already know because of geographical patterns, we know that it's going to happen. There's really nothing you can do about that. However, I do think that there are things that can be done to mitigate those. So are we looking at, water harvesting? Are we looking at things that we can do when there is a bumper harvest so that we can now have this food spread? The food that is being produced in the country, is it all being consumed? Is there nothing in storage? Is there nothing that can even be exported? Are we currently consuming everything that is being produced? And if so, what are some things that can be done to make sure now that we're talking about storage for tomorrow? Are we looking at when there's a bumper harvest, are we desiccating our grain? Are we drying out our milk and things like that? Or the other day there was a milk glut and we're pouring away milk. What are some interventions that we can put in place to make sure that there is storage happening so that we are not in this 3.6 million debacle that we are in currently?
So, and that's a fantastic question in a number of ways. One, climate change is there. You will have droughts, you will have floods. And that's why I said we need to have a better relationship with our water, because crops need water, they don't need rain, right? And the question is, can we store that water better? For a while, we worked with the ministry, and the ministry was actually setting up water ponds as opposed to water dams. Because when you invest in a 1 million cubic dam, it will probably serve 20,000, 30,000 homes. But if each and every one of those homes had a water pan, you'd actually have that water within a homestead ready for use in agriculture. And these are things we've seen the ministry try and do, and they're actually very good initiatives. As an institution, we're actually working with SNV on a project to educate smallholder farmers and livestock keepers in Isiolo, Laikipia, and Samburu around what we call the food security and water nexus. And that is, can we first of all help you get good agronomic practices on how to better utilize the water that is even available, right? So that you can actually plant, or you can have your livestock, have a longer longevity, and then they're actually able to take you throughout the season. The ministry has also launched what is called the Agricultural Sector Growth and Transformation Strategy, and within it there are quite a number of flagships that are aimed at not only driving up, agri-businesses in the country, but also trying to fix out the issues of, maize procurement in this country, fertilizer procurement in this country, having better research facilities, monitoring and evaluation in this country, but also talking about the question of extension. Because in Kenya, the work of the extension has actually been decentralized to the county governments. So you need to also engage with the county governments to try and ensure that extension officers are available to try to have what you'd want to call knowledge transfer to smallholder farmers. And there are good examples, for example, with Governor Nyoro, who during the COVID period, was able to engage almost 1,000 volunteers to be able to deliver maize varieties and some form of training to smallholder farmers. We are seeing the same kind of examples coming from Governor Wairia in Muranga, as well as Kivutha Kibwana in Makueni. And all these are being done in a way that aim to drive food and nutrition security as per the President's Big Four aspirations.
Sometimes when I look at the agricultural sector, starting just from the government, we all seem to know what needs to happen. Everybody, start from very well-informed principal secretaries to the directors of the various departments, to then the institutions there. We have the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization. People who work for CALRO are people who walk to any conference in this world and people stand up for them because they know that these people understand their stuff. People who work in the livestock sector as well, same. When it comes to implementation in the country, there seems to be, we are doing things in a disjointed manner. For example, like the example you've just given, Governor Nyoro doing this in Kiambu, Governor Kivutha Kibwana doing this in Makueni, Mwangi Wairia doing this in Muranga. Nyoro is the chairman of the Agriculture Committee in the Council of Governors. Would we say that, this is a conversation that's being driven at the Council of Governor level, where they are actually tapping on the knowledge, for example, of what Nyoro has in agriculture and food security sector to drive implementation of policy at that level? Would we say that even as we see CS Munya rolling out the transformation strategy at national level, is it being understood by the implementers? Where are the gaps?
Certainly, Eric. And I'll tell you an interesting thing. For a couple of years now, we've undertaken governance studies in a number of countries. And the best-in-class countries that are managing their agricultural ecosystems are the ones that actually understand the number of things that are happening parallelly but need to happen together and are speaking together. Right? And in this country, in Kenya, for example, one of the things we have been, trying to push for is, what is called the Joint Agriculture Secretariat to be strengthened, because that is a coordination mechanism that creates an avenue for the national government and the county government to seriously and seamlessly talk about, agriculture. But at the county level, and I do agree with you, Eric, I think Governor Nyoro has done a pilot that has done well, but now needs to be replicated in all the 47 county governments. And one of the things we've been in discussion with him is a very simple concept. If every county was able to allocate 50 million shillings to go into extension and to go into, serious training of smallholder farmers, and you have 47 of them, you're looking at in excess of 2 billion shillings every year going into agriculture and going into a very critical nerve that is required to make sure that agriculture works. But you have to have pilots that actually begin to show all the 47 governors that this works, right? And once that begins to work, then you then have, an uptake, an adoption rate that, we are really praying, because next year is an election year, that that momentum does not get affected, even as, people transition in and out of government.
Let's take a break at this point. It's an interesting conversation that we're having this morning with John Macharia. He's the country manager at AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. How do we transform Kenya's food systems? And that's the conversation we are having. And we're glad there are people who are already enjoying the conversation. Pamela Rita Munyi says, timely conversation on agribusiness. 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
In the quest of saving an ailing son, Sonia does the unthinkable. Will the guilt of her misdeeds haunt her, or will she come clean? Catch Mother's Guilt at 6 p.m. every Monday to Friday, only on KTN Home.
There's so many people peddling what is false, and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na pembe.
Nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 14, highs of 22 and lows of 13 today. Nyeri raining at 13, highs of 21. 15 degrees and cloudy, rather sunny conditions in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 15. In Kisumu this morning, 20 and partly sunny conditions, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Kakamega is partly sunny at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 16. In Mombasa, it continues to rain at 24, highs of 29 and lows of 23. And Malindi is raining as well at 24. We'll go to highs of 28, back down to lows of 24 today. Looking into Kampala, 18 degrees and sunny, highs of 28, coming back down to lows of 18. And Dar es Salaam, sunny conditions at 21, highs of 30 and lows of 21. Lagos, rain showers at 24, highs of 29. And Kinshasa is clear at 22. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 34.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
We are in the middle of traffic hour and jam-packed in the city today. Ngong Road also snaking along as you get to the City Mortuary roundabout. It also looks just as slow on the other side of things on Jogo Road, heading towards the City Stadium roundabout, and then spilling over to Landis Road and then the Kamkunji roundabout. The CBD is where all roads connect, and not looking too pretty at this moment. Aerodrome Road, as the option to get into the city, is packed completely. Coming off Langata Road from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, joining with Lusaka. Industrial area today also looking quite heavy. Lunga, my goodness, as you then try to join the Likoni interchange on Mombasa Road, that is very slow this morning. However, using industrial area to get onto Mombasa Road, not too bad this morning, as you then connect with Enterprise Road. That looks all right. Use that as an option. The Eastern Southern Bypass is also looking pretty good. The ICD route to run away from the terror that is Mombasa Road this morning is also offering great refuge. So that's an option this morning. Use them. Talk to us as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us on text at 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
It's 26 minutes to 8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. In the room this morning is Eric Latif and Andu Oko. CT Muga is away. We have a guest, John Macharia. He's the country manager for AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. We're talking about Kenya's food systems and what needs to happen to see them transformed. John, you were discussing and even trying to define the food systems. You talked about the various parts of it. There's the financial side, there's the input side, looking at the fertilizers and the seeds. There's understanding the soil, and that's the research side. Then there's the markets. All those things you're saying need to work in tandem and very well. But then are we talking about the various players understanding what each player is doing, or do the various players just need to focus on being very good at what they do?
So all those things, again, need to work in tandem, but I think they all come together at policy level. So in Kenya, what we've seen working with the ministry is that the ministry has actually set up what is called the Agricultural Transformation Office, and that's an office that is actually monitoring the work that is being done under the Agricultural Growth and Transformation Strategy, but it's also coordinating mechanism that is also working with the county governments to make sure that things are being tracked and things are being done. But what needs to be strengthened is how we bring out what the counties are actually doing, and you know, we front load that in all our national documents and things like that. But coordination is something that we are seeing improving, and we are hoping that even as we drive this transformation in the country, that we should begin to see tangible results at the farmer level, and with our hunger index and things like that.
So how then, because what we're seeing right now, I'm still going towards this collective agriculture in the country that could essentially make sure. Okay, so before I even go to that, very simple question. Is Kenya food secure? Not are we getting towards food security? Are we putting together things right now that would eventually lead to food security? Are we secure right now, today?
The Ministry of Agriculture has what is called the Food Security Monitoring Committee, and as far as their last report indicates, Kenya is food secure. We have a live food balance sheet that actually tracks the amount of maize, beans, rice, and other commodities on a weekly and bi-weekly basis to make sure that, you know, we are food secure. And why that tracking is important is because if we begin to have deficits, then that drives up consumer prices at the front, but at the back end, you're actually having smallholder farmers that might be producing in an environment where the best decision is actually to allow for certain imports to come through. Number two, out of that kind of information, you're also tracking the amount of acreage in the country that has been planted for commodity 1, 2, and 3. And with that, you're then able to predict that by the time harvest comes, we should be able to have this amount of production or this amount of food available for the country. But the other thing to say is this, and I think the ministry has said this time again, the country is also food secure because the 12 million bag deficit that we have is actually fed from Tanzania, from Uganda. So having better trade policies also helps our own food security situation and position.
I see it differently though, John. I have read the National Food and Nutrition Security Policy. And the definition of food security is not about availability, it's about access.
Yes.
The things that we've been talking about, those are availability. So do we have maize available? Yes. Do we have grain available in the country? Yes. Are we producing enough? Yes. Are we able to meet the shortfall by bringing in from the neighboring countries? Yes. However, is it accessible? And I think if we now went into that grain, whether that food is accessible as the definition should be, that is accessible easily and more affordably, I think then we'll have questions to answer.
And you're absolutely right. That is a classical definition of food security. And I think what you're alluding to is an issue of the cost of food. And one of the interesting things, if you remember, I think last year or the year before, there was a very healthy conversation on what is the effective price of a pack of maize in Nairobi. If you're going into the slums, and vis-a-vis what is the best price to give a farmer in the village, right? And I think one of the things that has been commonly said is that a pack of maize in Nairobi should not go beyond 100. Otherwise, your consumer price index begins to go out of the roof. But at the same time, at the back end, you have cost of production issues that you need to be able to deal with. So part of the solution is, on the one hand, providing subsidies to smallholder farmers so that the cost of production comes down. If the cost of production comes down, then the farmer is able to make a certain amount of income that allows for food at the consumption level to be at a certain price, which then makes sure that people are not having, riots on the street because of food riots like we saw a couple of years back. So I believe solutions are there; they're being done to make sure that you not only have availability but you have access, but it is also being done at a cost that is affordable to the common mwananchi in Kenya in general.
They say that if you cut your foot, you're not able to walk properly. That affects your whole being. So now, if we're looking at food security for this entire country, and there's a section of the people. There's a section of the country that is not able to access food at any given time, then it affects the entire grid. It affects the entire body of whether you can be secure or not. So for me, from where I'm looking at it, if you have 3.6 million people at any given time who are not able to access this food, then the country is not secure. In terms of food, are there sustainable resources available to make sure that at any given time, we will not see the pictures that we are seeing. We will not hear the cries that we are seeing. We will not see this issue where people are looking for water and the water they get is dirty water at best. So for me, that security involves and includes sustainable sources, making sure that your sustainability is high up there in the percentages. We cannot say that collectively the country is food secure if you have even the slightest percentage of people who are looking for food and their resources have been depleted.
And we're talking about safe food.
Absolutely. And I do agree with you. But different problems also have different solutions. And I think the way that particular solution of people who are really in an acute situation, I think the solution has actually been to give them cash stipends, right? Because if you think about it, if I say that because we're having a glut in Kiambu, now I should take my cabbages to Turkana. The question is there infrastructure in Turkana to make sure that my cabbages are able to stay for a week or two and be able to feed people there, right? But if you give people cash stipends, you're then able to begin to attract private sector who can actually begin to put together that infrastructure. And that conversation with the county is even more critical because the county does have money from our coffers, from our taxes, to begin to put up that investment. And in that sense, you're quickly putting up value chain infrastructure that makes the food that is available to stay longer and to feed people more. So the question is, what's the solution? What's the short-term solution? What's the mid-term? And what's the long-term solution? And one of the important things to also remember is that we have a national climate change action plan. And counties are beginning to domesticate that action plan so that you're having infrastructure solutions towards issues to do with food, but you're also having smallholder farmers begin to adopt climate-smart technologies and approaches that ensure, first of all, they're able to produce within the ecosystems they're in. And that is then also helping, attract private sector because now so you can order different things than you used to order before.
I think maybe we could say that there could be a certain threshold. If you get to 80%, then you can declare yourself food secure, but you cannot ignore the 20%. I don't think really that we should be saying that Kenya is 100% food secure when we know that there are people who cannot access that food, safe food, and also they cannot access nutritious food. Because much as we want to do the cash transfer to an area that has not produced any crop, cash transfer to an area where animals are dying because of lack of water and lack of fodder, cash transfer to that area, we are simply saying that those people are going to be able to go and buy a kilo of meat and they'll not be able to get vegetables, they'll not be able to get the carbohydrates that they need. So are those people really food secure if it's not nutritious?
So and that's a good question, Eric. But the way this works is that you have to have a global index, right? And for example, if you remember, I think this year or late last year, we had the global index, a global hunger index for the whole world. Kenya had actually improved. Kenya was actually doing relatively well at a national level. The question is, how do we take this index and take it at a county level? Because certainly Nairobi will not be the same as Turkana. Mombasa will not be the same as Kisumu. So how do we take that global metric take it to the county level so that these variabilities, people begin to become clear about them. And that then drives the level of investment that is required within that particular ecosystem. For example, the example I gave about Governor of Kiambu, he had actually isolated 1 or 2 wards where there was, people are being given food aid, and he was asking what's the problem there, right? But because he has this level of research or this level of metrics talking about food security, he's then able to better isolate an area and what investment is required. And that is at a county level. So the question is, the 3.6 million vulnerable homesteads, they're in which counties? And how do we help the county governments to then have sight of that information and recommend what investments need to be made, right? But part of that conversation is both at the national and county level, we need to increase the budgetary allocation to agriculture. I think CADAP recommends 10%. We have seen a lot of variation over the years. At the county level, we're also seeing a lot of variation. If you think about Kivuda Kibwana, Governor Nyoro will probably be at the higher tier. If you think about other counties, things are different. But certainly we need to increase investments in agriculture, especially to the regions where we are having vulnerable homesteads.
Do you think that it's something that should be national policy? Because right now, what it would appear is that it's a suggestion. All right, for those who are, geographically disadvantaged, because that's what it is. Every year you will have this, where you have little to no rainfall. You will then not be able to have these sustainable resources that you're talking about. Do you think that it ought to be national policy? Because we've seen it happen in other countries, where you have areas in the world, Australia, Israel, parts of the United States, where there is natural desertification. It becomes national policy that a part of your budget then must go towards making sure that you set aside money to make sure that in the time of rainfall, this and that happens, that your development budget goes towards damming and things like that. Do you think it will help in this country that some of these things in these areas, out of the 23 counties, for example, we see there's problems, 12 of those are in dire circumstances and continue to be the subjects of this over and over. National policy then would advise that, almost under law, that you do something with your funds to sort out this problem. Would that help?
So the first thing to remember is that the Kenyan Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, is quite clear that agriculture is devolved. And it is at an implementation and a financial level. So that has already been set. But what we are seeing, not just in Kenya and in all other countries, it's good to have policy, but it's better to have policies that are being implemented. And policy implementation is basically making cash available, right? That then makes the investments that are required to drive the change that we require. And that is why, even when we talk about CADAP, the 10% requirement is exactly what we keep telling all the counties, that please get it to this level. It's not necessarily saying that 10% is sufficient, but it's a good and great start, to get us significantly moving the needle, not just for the high potential areas, but also the areas that, are actually having, resource constraints around climate change and things like that.
The many players.
So policy implementation with adequate funds is what is important.
That's very critical. Is there political goodwill really to get all these things rolling? I'm asking that on the back of a statement, for example, that was released on the 30th of August by the Association of Kenya Animal Feeds Manufacturers, AKFEMA. And they're already raising the red flag and saying, look, we are the ones who produce animal feeds, and we use crop products to produce animal feeds. Now, what are they saying? Kenya does not produce any reasonable quantities of soybeans, sunflower or cotton, whose byproducts, that's soybean meal, sunflower seed cake, cotton seed cake, are major sources of protein in the manufacture of animal feeds. Kenya depends entirely on imports from Tanzania, Uganda, Malawi and Zambia for oil cakes. Now, how many acreages in this country are under livestock production? It's a bigger percentage of Kenya that's actually under livestock production. How many acreages are under crop production? And of those, if we're actually not even producing enough, it talks about something. We have an issue with feeding the people with plant. We have an issue with feeding the people with protein, animal protein. It's an issue. So I was saying, is there political goodwill across the board from the national level on implementation, not just on producing good papers? This is a strategy. What is it called? This one, the agriculture sector transformation strategy, the food and nutrition policy. All these things are there on paper. Is there goodwill to see them being implemented? And that is coming to that point of putting the money where all these documents are.
I believe there's goodwill. And for me, goodwill, first of all, comes from the presidency in that he has a big four and actually has a pillar on agriculture and has called himself out to, an aspiration to have 100% food and nutrition security for all Kenyans. That's number one. One of the points I talked about why our food system is failing is because of the level of yields and productivity that we have. We are producing 1.5 metric tons of maize in an hectare, where others are doing 5, or 6, or 10, or 9. So certainly our cost of production and the efficiencies we can push to the Akafema group for them to be able to provide animal food at affordable prices is certainly affected. I know there's a very controversial subject about, genetically modified sources and things like that. But I think the ministry has made an attempt to actually try and introduce that for cotton in the country, because that then speaks to the question of cotton seed cake, right? So I believe there are attempts that are being made, but they need to be coordinated in a sense that they actually are tangible and live, for example, to the group of the members of Akafema. But I think political will is there, and I think there are quite a number of interventions being made to ensure that not only the crop side of things, but also people who are livestock keepers, and I believe even fisher folk, there are quite a number of interventions being made to ensure that there's access, availability, and resources at an affordable cost.
You mentioned fisherfolk, and I think that's very interesting because we talked about, what's going on at the newly established Lamu port, what has been happening in Kisumu for the longest time, what interventions are being put in place, because one of the issues that we see obviously is storage. So you have your fresh catch, and then if you don't sell it, it goes to waste because there's not adequate storage. We're looking at freezer containers and things like that. Other interventions that we keep talking about that are vital to make sure that these things actually work. Just as an example of that. So in all of these things that are happening, where does AGRA come in? Because we know why AGRA was established in the first place, to look at this transformation, to look at the transformative design then of going to from where you have nothing to then now when you're dealing with the smaller organizations to add up to the big picture. In all of this, where does AGRA come in to make sure, or to at least help and support, to make sure that these things are being realized?
Number one, AGRA is an alliance. So we bring people together to have a conversation. Right now, today is the first day of the AGRF, Africa Green Revolution Forum. And in this particular conference, we expect more than 10,000 people to have a conversation on food systems and Africa's agricultural transformation journey. Part of the participants are sitting and former heads of state. We have ministers of agriculture, we have farmers, we have women, we have finance partners. We have all value chain players coming to have this conversation. The second thing is that in our DNA, we work with government. We work with government as a partner. We work with government as an advisor, right? So that we are able to provide the evidence that is required to ensure that the right decisions are being made, right? And the third thing is that we come out as a technology, how do I call it? We buy down the risk for you to do certain things. So we will invest in pilots together with governments. We will invest in pilots together with private sector so that we are able to show or prove a case about what certain good technologies or practices can actually be able to bring to the table. So quite recently, like you talked about fisheries, we've done a study that will possibly be put available in a couple of weeks around aquaculture. And we found that the issues of aquaculture have to do with the size of the pond and the number of fish you can actually put within a pond, fingerlings you can have within a pond, a pond. But the biggest issue, again, to Akafema, it's the cost of animal feeds. Because you are seeing that getting some ingredients from the Black Sea is actually cheaper than buying the same ingredients from sources in Kenya.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, but it's true. But the evidence is out there, and I believe that will be used to make the right choices in terms of, making raw material accessible, making value chain investments to make sure that we are able to store much better.
There's a comment from Joe's Fresh Farm. I think he's posted 3 comments. If you just scroll down a bit, Ndu. Starting with this one, I welcome diversification of food varieties across different countries. Our counties, erosion of genetic pools of underutilized or minor crop species like indigenous leafy vegetables, small-grained African cereals, legumes, wild fruits, and tree crops are disappearing in the face of competition with industrially produced varieties of wheat, maize, rice. What's he talking about?
And that's actually a very good point. As you think about food systems, the question is, of course, we are producing, but the other extreme, we are having malnutrition and obesity, right? And the push then is for how do we have healthier lifestyles? How do we have, agricultural systems that are actually pushing towards better health? And one of the issues has been, we are carb-heavy community. But what are the healthier sources of carbs? Millet, African leafy vegetables. We run our sustainable land management program in Western Kenya, and we've actually seen that the African leafy vegetable is actually ending up as a value chain for women, but it is actually providing more household income than the traditional value chains you think about maize and beans. But having more African leafy vegetables on the table also means that the community is healthier. You're eating healthier diets, right? If you're going to work with millet growers and you have the flour blending policy, it means that you're actually taking up healthier food. So I totally agree with him that the whole idea of diversification is good, not just from a production standpoint, but also from a consumption standpoint.
So I think he goes ahead to say now food and farming systems can be reformed, but only by moving away from an industrial orientation and organization.
When I think about anything, especially agriculture, I think about the planet, I think about people, and I think about profit. I'll start with profit. It's because of sustainability. There's no investor who's going to come into something that is not making money. I think about people, and I think about inclusivity because different communities have different diets. They have different approaches to viewing food, right? So that is vitally important. And there are communities who will want to eat what is organic. There are others who will want to eat what is industrial consumed because of money, right? And the last thing is about the environment. We must think about it sustainably because it's the one resource that is bound to make sure that we're able to produce food not only now but into the future, right? So it's about the different communities and people. If you go to Kisumu, what is the indigenous fish that you'll find there that we can talk about? Right?
I actually don't know.
You don't know, right?
Tilapia and Nile perch are not indigenous, are they?
I don't even know.
Very interesting. Right now, just quickly, is that, right now, a lot of people, even if we're looking at smallholder farmers, they're not going into farming to contribute to the national cake. Most farmers are going into farming for personal business. So when we start talking about things like this, that are we now looking at alternate resources of food? Is it something that now farmers will then be able to imbibe, realizing that we're looking at this as a national thing as opposed to my business and how I can make money for myself?
I think the bigger question is what type of farmer do you see 10 years out in 2030? The national statistic we have right now is that the average age of a farmer is anywhere between 65, 75 years old. 10 years from now, do you expect that person to be the farmer who is producing for this country? Whereas our recent statistics indicate that the average age of Kenya is 20 to 22 years old. So how do we get that young man or woman interested in agriculture as an opportunity? How do we put productive assets into their hands? How do we ensure someone living out of campus can get land, can get finance, can get skills that allow them to make profit, to find a job and an income out of agriculture? And I always give this example.
Can you come again one day so we can actually talk about that? About ensuring that young people can see agriculture as not just as this thing that's punishment because you got a D,
yes,
but as a way of life.
Absolutely. It is a way of life.
John Macharia, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
John is the country manager at the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA. We've been talking about transforming Kenya's food systems. Thank you very much, George. Have you again in the studio. John, sorry. Have you again in the studio soon. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. About 3.6 million Kenyans are currently facing acute hunger. Country Manager Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, John Macharia, while being interviewed on SpiceFM Situation Room, also says our food production hasn't caught up with the number of people in our country.
The number of people who are going through acute hunger are actually about 3.6 million. And to remember is that Kenyans, we grew at a rate of about 1 million people a year. So by 2030, we'll possibly have 10 million more people that we need to be feeding. And in the same context, our food production has not necessarily caught up with the rest of the world. So if you think about maize, I think on average our national production is about 1.5 metric tons per hectare, vis-a-vis countries that are producing 5 to 8 to 10 metric tons per hectare.
He further says climate change is to blame for food shortage, as we've been experiencing drought, locust invasion, among other attacks in our food production.
Kenya as a country has not been spared from the vagaries of climate change. So we have increased weather variability. So we are seeing increased floods, we are seeing increased droughts. But we've also seen increases in pests and diseases. The whole of last year, beyond having COVID, we actually had to battle a locust invasion that actually was in about 27 counties in this country. The other important thing is to think about the relationship with our environment. We are seeing increased acidification of our soils. And also just to note that we're also seeing that more people are converting farmland into real estate.
A huge fire has been reported in Lolongo, Machakos County. Property of unknown value has been destroyed. Firefighters, in collaboration with police officers, have arrived at the scene and are trying to put out the fire. Police say the cause of the fire is still unknown, but investigations have been launched. Education CS George Magoha has promised to continue with the mop-up exercise until all KCPE candidates report to Form 1. Magoha has said that Kwale County has recorded the lowest number of students who've joined Form 1 in the coast region. Magoha asked education officers and chiefs around the county to ensure the remaining students are enrolled in high school in the mop-up exercise.
For the high schools that are now going on, because they have done reasonably well except Kwale, just at about 70%. And I can't understand why the technical institutions in Kwale cannot help us to move, because the government is one. Let us move the children back. Don't tell me that the children have no uniform. Does the uniform lack? The uniform does lack. The government has provided books. We can agree that there's an overcrowding, but it's better to be overcrowded as to deal with it. Let all children go to school.
The National Police Service has again banned roadblocks and static police checks across the country following numerous complaints of traffic officers collecting bribes from motorists. IG Hilary Mtiambai says they're investigating any complaint made against a traffic officer and stern action will be taken on those found culpable in an effort to enforce discipline among traffic police. He further said that they've realized that traffic commanders had not taken action against errant officers receiving bribes, as they'd received numerous complaints on the said officers. The 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew in Laikipia Nature Conservancy kicks off today after weeks of unrest. Interior CS Fred Matiang'i effected the curfew after over 40 houses were torched last weekend, leaving over 100 families displaced and 7 fatalities have been reported in the area in the last 2 weeks. Police had already launched an operation to stop livestock thieves in the area. People in possession of illegal firearms had also been ordered to surrender them immediately or face the law. Area residents have raised concern over the attacks, hoping that the curfew will manage the situation.
Yule kijana alikuwa kwa kasema, aliambiwa sisi ni kisasi tunalipisha na tutaendelea miezi miwili mpaka tulipishe ile watu yetu wameuliwa.
Alikuja hii nyumba ya jao wakafuja wakachukua jao. Sasa kuchukua jao ndio tena wakarudi huko nyumba penye tulikuwa tunaweka hiyo ng'ombe kubwa. Sasa wakapiga na mapaga.
Rift Valley Regional Coordinator George Natembea says all is set for the operation that will restore peace in the area.
Kutakuwa na vikosi vyote vya usalama vitakuwa pale in correct numbers, in the right equipment, kuhakikisha kwamba watu wanatolewa pale, ili pia kukuwe na heshima kwa maisha ya watu na pia kwa mali ya watu.
And in business, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics will tomorrow release data capturing performance of the economy and the jobs market after a 5-month delay. KNBS Director General MacDonald Abudho says that official statistics, including the Annual Economic Survey 2021, Leading Economic Survey Indicators Report and others will be released tomorrow. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so that Mombasa Road stretch still continues to be an issue this morning. We're still looking at traffic very slow. The ICD route outbound, she is not looking too bad. You're connecting with General Motors, or you're going all the way to the southern bypass through to Langata Road, and then guess what? Yes, you'll get stuck. There's quite some traffic on Langata Road this morning heading out in the city. So maybe the option is then going Van Gong Road, getting into the city, a longer route, but you will not get stuck. Industrial area, Lunga Lunga, and then connecting with the Likoni Road interchange. Slows down quite some. The city centre, complete mishmash. Everybody entering into the city centre is very slow today, all the way from Haile Selassie, going then towards Uhuru Highway, getting in on Kenyatta Avenue, out through Moy Avenue, and then you connect with what the mess is, the Globe Cinema overpass. That's what it looks like right now. We're also seeing some traffic coming off of Thika Superhighway. That connects with everything else today, moving along very, very slowly. Let's take a look at what it looks like in a short while. Help us out as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only way to start
is 7 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Thank you very much for tuning in this lovely Tuesday morning. C.T. Muga is not in today. He has taken some time off to re-energize, but he'll be back, God willing, next week. In the room is Eric Latif and Nduoko. We are joined by somebody else I'm going to introduce shortly. Today's proverb is a Maasai proverb. Again, now that C.T. is away. We are doing Maasai proverbs this week. A proverb does not translate itself. A proverb does not translate itself. Okay? Simple, straightforward. If you want a translation, then you don't get it. Then that's it. Welcome to our audience who are now joining us on KTN Home for the next 1 hour. We are also live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website, www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as being live across the country on SpiceFM. Roslyn Obala is our guest the next hour. Roslyn is the group political editor at the Standard Group. Roslyn, karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Asante sana.
You cannot be a group political editor and we don't give you that.
Without portfolio.
Yes. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Asante.
Karibu sana. The conversation we want to have this morning is a conversation that basically we have been having this conversation on this show and people have been calling in and asking the same question. So we want to ask that question. Does the media in Kenya have its finger on the pulse of the nation? And this is, with everything that's happening in the country, do we know what actually is raising the heartbeat of the country? Or are we participating in using something else to raise the heartbeat of the country? And this is basically because of the kind of political headlines that we see. The headline today in the Standard: Tuju puts Ruto on KRA's radar. Jubilee Party challenges the DP to publicly declare his taxes following his admission that he owns 70% of the properties listed by the Interior CS, as well as 200,000 chickens, giving him an income of 1.5 million every day through the sale of eggs. There was a long statement that was issued by Raphael Tuju yesterday, and part of that is quoted here: "May it please Dr. Ruto to show young people the skills to acquire such property in such a short time. He should also teach us, the clueless adults." The other headline: Jubilee or UDA, Waiguru's options. A cautious Kirinyaga governor weighs options days after accusing the government of intimidation through arrests and summonses by state agencies like the EACC. That is on page 8. The Tuju story is on page 6. Now, if you look at that headline, it's basically the story on page 6 is talking about what Jubilee Secretary General Raphael Tuju was saying yesterday after what they called their meeting. And the statement was basically just to come out and bash the Deputy President over the statement that was issued in Parliament by the Cabinet Secretary for the Interior, who was saying where security detail is spread to guard the Deputy President and his interests. And then Tuju picks it up and comes and says, yeah. In fact, now that the DP was saying that he only owns 70%, there are some things that we did not even know about. Can he tell us how he acquired this wealth? The last time we knew, he publicly told us he's worth 100 million shillings. Now it appears he's worth billions of shillings in such a short time. He should tell us the source of this wealth and how he made his money while at the same time pursuing a PhD in university and running the country, blah, 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 blah. That is there. Ndu, why is that story with that very sad picture? The story with the very sad picture, was it in page, it was page 12. Page 12 of the Standard this morning. Pain of endless cycle of killings in Laikipia as elections near. And it says, the intro to this story: in just 1 month, 12 people, including 2 police officers, have been killed by suspected bandits in Laikipia West and North constituencies. Hundreds of residents have fled their homes and they are now camping in various parts of the constituencies, considered to be relatively safe. Police deployment is also ongoing. And then it tells us that the president yesterday chaired the National Security Council, where they decided that they were going to roll out a security operation in this area, declared this area a security zone, and also imposed a curfew of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So, in your opinion, Mheshimiwa Roslyn Obala, does the media have the pulse of the nation?
Eric, if you ask me, yes. Yeah, because from where I sit, politics cuts across, and everything we discuss is about politics. When it comes to economy, when it comes to health, when it comes to sports, we must have the political goodwill for it to thrive. Now, if you look at not only the Standard, but if you look at all the dailies, you'll find that the front page is about politics.
Yep.
And we are heading to the general elections. And politics is about interest and bringing people out and calling them. You have just said that Tuju waited for the Interior Cabinet Secretary to use the opportunity in Parliament to just do a lifestyle audit of the Deputy President and ask him now to account for that. The question is, when you assume an office, according to Chapter 6, the Leadership and Integrity Act, it says you must declare your wealth. And the institutions that are entrusted with this work are supposed to be able to do a yearly audit to explain to Kenyans that when I came on board, I was worth 100 million. Within a year, I'm worth 2 billion. So you need to tell Kenyans where you acquired this. But if you look at what is happening now, and I think we've been having this conversation over and over again, that why is it that our state officers, within a very short time when they join government, they're able to amass so much wealth. And we've also seen some governors finding themselves in problems because they cannot explain their wealth. So by Tuju challenging the Deputy President to come out and tell us what he's paying KRA, I think for Kenyans, is a very important information. Because when he declares the interest that he pays to carry, then we are able to accumulate all what he has accumulated within this time. Then we can actually ask that within the 9 years that you have been the deputy president, how did you acquire this wealth? So as much as it is politics, we need to put our leaders on the spot.
Sure.
Yes.
If it is possible to apply a measure, then which is more important? Which then should grab national attention? When we have people being butchered and chased out of their homes in Laikipia, Western North, when we have people in 12 counties in dire need out of 23 counties that are suffering from, famine at this moment, lack of food, starvation, on the brink of starvation, is this applied with some kind of measure to say, all right, which is the juicier story or which is the more important one that we must cover?
Okay, if from where I sit as an editor making a decision, remember the role of the media is to inform, entertain, and educate. Now, at the same time, the media is in business. And here is a case where you need to also learn your audience and get to know what exactly do your audience want. Because you remember when we started with the issue of COVID last year in March, we were having the COVID stories every single day, and you find that at some particular time it was fatigue to the public, to the extent that they were no longer interested in those stories because it was like repeatedly the same stories. Now that comes again with the issue of the bandits in Laikipia. This is not the first time we are talking about insecurity in parts of the country. And we have called out the leadership. We have said the number of people who are affected, people who are displaced, and it's like it's a song every single day. So if you are in a position to decide which is the best story to go with as a front page and which is the best story to have it, but not as the main story, then now that is how to juggle the two. Because remember, you are in business, at the same time you're also informing the public. Now, the incident here is in Laikipia. But remember, the leadership when they took oath of office was to protect properties and lives. But here is a case where we are going for what they have acquired as opposed to declaring what they have done to protect Kenyans. So you look at the two and you ask yourself, if today we had an headline of the killings in Laikipia West and Laikipia East and North, then how many people will resonate with that story? If it is a publication for Central Kenya and the other regions, yes, it will resonate with them because they are the people consuming it. But what about a reader in Nairobi? Will they resonate with that? Unless they are having relatives in Laikipia. So you look at that and you look at what exactly will we appeal to the public, because you're balancing business and you're also balancing informing the public and doing the work of the media, which is a public good.
Right.
So are you saying that the pulse that the media has on the nation is understanding that when it comes to political rhetoric, we have no fatigue? It's entertaining enough that you can have a headline every single day for 365 days and there'll be no fatigue. When it comes to matters of life and death, it's COVID, it's spreading, more people are dying. We are having shortages of mortuary space. We're having shortages of bed space in Nairobi. If those stories were forming the headline, people would get fatigued. Is that what you're saying?
History has it, and this is Kenyan politics. We do elections today, and tomorrow we start politics.
Okay.
And we will do it until the next election. That is Kenyan audience.
But is this coming out of practice where we can say that, look at us, in this particular year, we had a headline on this, and it was developing. A headline on COVID that showed the situation in Kakamega County with the lack of oxygen and an oxygen facility that has not been installed because, one, there is the issue of payment of tax. Secondly, there's the issue of a contractor not being able to do this because that. There's the issue of oxygen availability in the country. There's the issue of bed availability. There's the issue of the number of people who are now getting COVID and they're not being diagnosed with COVID. And, people are just getting pneumonia and such. All those, we can say, during this time, when we had these headlines, this is the kind of traction that we saw our paper getting. And during this time, just look at what John is projecting on the screen. And John, you can actually just put this on the screen for everybody to see. 7 days of September. Dr. D.P. Ruto's 10 days test as Matiang'i goes to Parliament. Second, the next day, Matiang'i exposes DP, property and security. Third day, big boost for Raila's bid to woo Mount Kenya. 4th of September, what Matiang'i did not tell you on VIP security. 5th of September, blind spots that Raila must avoid. 6th, a split cabinet like no other. Today, Tuju puts Ruto on KRA's radar. Is this for entertainment's sake, or is it that this is what the people actually want?
It's not for entertainment. I think it's for information, because when I started, I said that we are in a political mood currently, and we are heading to the elections. And just like you have said, that we have also done stories on COVID and oxygen, and we have done special stories on that.
Yeah.
I think it was a Standard that did the first story on gasping for air.
Yeah.
And we did it, and we sustained it as a special project.
Yes.
But if you look at the traction that it got and the politics that people read, then you find that as much as we come with in-depth stories and special stories on specific topics, the traction is still on politics.
Right.
And this is just how our audience have resonated with the media reports that come out. So you find that on every single day, as much as even today we will say we are not having politics on the front page and we'll have a different story, you'll find that political story that's tucked somewhere inside the paper will be having more traction as opposed to the story that you have highlighted on the front line.
So,
yeah,
is then media reports resonating or mirroring rather what the general population of Kenyans want to hear, or where their minds are heavily invested, that politics then takes the first position over anything else? So are we putting out, there's always the age-old question is, are we putting out what Kenyans want to hear, or are Kenyans saying what it is that we hoped, what they hoped will be put out?
You see, the role of the media is to set the agenda. And you can only set that agenda. And you've seen, even during the COVID times, the media has gone back to the drawing board and to see how best can we remain afloat, remain relevant, and inform the people. So you look at that and you look at what is the consumption. What is the content that people want to hear? As much as, I'll give you an example, the government does reviews on COVID protocols. And one of them is that the government has banned public gathering and political rallies. What are we seeing? We are still seeing people coming out and attending public events and all that. So that just tells you that apart from the danger that is posed by exposing yourself to crowds and all that, people still want to listen to the politics and listen to the politicians.
So who's setting the agenda? Who is setting the agenda then?
It's still the media, because you see, if I'm seated on the table to make a decision, and here is a case where I have a COVID story and the numbers, and I also have an event where the politicians are and the pool crowds and they're exchanging, the highest thing is that I will not ignore what these politicians were doing, as much as I'm calling them out for exposing the public to COVID infections. But still, I will also have the COVID story. But if you put these two and you look at the traction that these two stories are picked, you'll find that there will be more reads when it comes to the political content as opposed to the health side of the story.
Somebody has said, Rosalind, that this is as a result of sustained drip feeding by the media.
Conditioning.
So we have basically gotten to a point where we've conditioned the people that this is what ought to be on the front page. That if you're not talking about Ruto, Raila, Uhuru, now Matiang'i, Musalia, Kalonzo, then there's no news. Over time, we have made them feel that this is what ought to be in the news. Let me give you the context of what I'm saying. Yesterday, the National Security Council met. The National Security Council, for those who live on Mars and they've just visited the country, is actually established by the Constitution. And it consists of the president, the deputy, the CS responsible for defense, the CS for foreign affairs, CS for internal security, the attorney general, the chief of the defense forces, the director general of the National Intelligence Service, and the inspector general of the police. It does supervisory control over national security organs and perform any other function prescribed by legislation. This is basically the top decision-making organ when it comes to security in the country. When the National Security Council meets, there's something.
Yes.
When the president summons the heads of the security organs, military, police, intelligence, the defense minister, the interior minister, the foreign affairs minister, and they meet and they have a conversation, they are likely to come out there and actually go to Parliament and request for a declaration of emergency. This is such a serious organization. When they were meeting yesterday, they knew very well that this will not be a headline if Raphael Tuju goes to issue a statement out there and where he's bashing William Ruto. Are we then the ones who are setting the agenda, or are we following the agenda that's being set by the political class?
Eric, I don't think that the political class is setting the agenda for us. I think we are setting the agenda because you just said that the NSAC is a constitutional organ that sits. And the question we should ask is that when was the last time that the National Security Council sat? And the other day when Matiang'i came to Parliament, he was talking about the security of the Deputy President, which is actually discussed at NSAC. But that, we did not hear him or give a report of what they discussed at NSAC to decide to replace the Deputy President's security. But here is a case where when we are doing stories on Laikipia, then they are saying we have met about the security in Laikipia. So you look and balance, because why now? And even when that meeting came, it was a short statement that was sent to newsrooms. So when it comes to security, are you supposed to speculate, or you're supposed to be in tandem with the statement you have received? Because none of us...
security is bigger, basically. Is it the security of the Deputy President who still has security officers deployed to him, or is it the security of Grace Wangoi and the others in Olmoran, Laikipia, who have to move out of their homes because their kin have been killed?
Eric, we have been consistent on this story. I don't think the media has just covered it today, because yesterday we had the NSAC meeting. I think we even sent a team down to Laikipia to cover the incidences in Laikipia. So this is not the first time that we are actually covering. It's only that now it's coming out because it was discussed in the NSAC. And I think it has been discussed because of the sustained coverage by the media indicating what has been happening there. So it's not like we woke up today and we said, okay, now that the president and the deputy president and the top security bosses are meeting, then now it's a big story. It is a story that we have sustained. Only that the prominence that it has gotten as opposed to the political content that we've been carrying, then now maybe put somebody to ask, has the media been ignoring what has been happening, or the media has not been giving enough prominence as we have been giving to political stories?
Actually, that is the conversation. That more prominence is given to political rhetoric than to a story such as this one. That yes, the story has been covered. It gets a full page coverage in the Standard, for example, today, page 12. It gets page 7 on The Nation. But the headline is Tuju's statement. Let's take a break. It's 28 minutes after 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live with the Standard Group's Group Political Editor, Roslyn Obala. We're talking about the media. Does the media have its finger on the pulse of the nation with the way we are covering and the way we are highlighting the stories on a daily basis? After the break, we'll take a call from you. We'll take calls from you, 0719 012 600. We are live on SpiceFM, online, and on KTN Home.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
We give you the latest, the funniest, and the most entertaining updates and news from Kenya and the world while you kick back and relax. Join in on our comical duo Hassan Umar and Sugar Boy on Habari za News every Friday at 10 p.m. only on KTN Home.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Tengisa kidole, tengisa kidole, agano kidole, agano kidole, agano. Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, still cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 15, highs of 22, lows of 13 today. Nakuru, mostly sunny at 16, highs of 24 and lows of 15. It's raining in Nyeri at 14, highs of 21 and lows of 13. In Kisumu this morning, 20, mostly sunny conditions, highs of 29 and lows of 18. Kakamega is sunny at 22, highs of 28 and lows of 16. Mombasa is raining at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Light rain in Malindi at 26 with highs of 28 and lows of 25. Kampala is sunny at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 18. And we're looking at sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 24 with highs of 30. It'll come down to lows of 22. Lagos is wet this morning at 24, highs of 29. It'll come back down to lows of 29. And Kinshasa is sunny at 22. A very warm day today, going to highs of 34, back down to lows of 22.
Spice up your life.
All right, so traffic in the city today, quite a lot of it. Mombasa Road, quite hot and heavy. Between the Weybridge and SGR is where it's heaviest right now. Lunga, we're looking into industrial area, then connecting with the Likoni interchange. Quite some traffic there as well. Langata Road, jam-packed all the way from Mutiende through to the Timor roundabout. Not looking good right now. Uhuru Highway, in and outbound, all the way through to Westlands from Haile Selassie Avenue. That will take us through traffic hour. Coming out of Westlands, Limu Road, jam-packed. Getting to the Globe Cinema overpass from Muranga Road. That's another story. Kiambu Road now, I think we are getting on 4 lanes. Doesn't look good, guys, but we'll be out of it soon enough without too much of a scratch. Hopefully. Let us know. Where are you stuck this morning? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
It's 28 minutes to 9. Kenya's biggest conversation continues in the Situation Room this morning is Eric Latif, Nduoko, and Rosalind Obala, Group Political Editor at the Standard Group. We're asking, does the media have its finger on the pulse of the nation? And we'd like to hear from you on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Or you can call in 0719 012 600. So it's just about, how do you make the decision on what appears on the front page? Because yes, there are many stories, and it's true what you've said, Rosalind. We have covered very many stories on health, on human interest stories, like this one, on Laikipia, on what's happening around the country in terms of people who are facing starvation and food insecurity. What's happened in the country with regards to COVID-19. Those stories are there on a daily basis. There are many other, even the pullouts that talk about financial issues and personal development issues. But how do you decide what comes on the headline? Because that is what determines whether I'm going to pick up that paper or not.
Yeah, you just said it. What makes you pick up the paper or watch the news during the bulletin is what thrives, what the public says. And I said this is a political moment. We are heading to the elections. Every person listening to news will want to know, Where are the big leaders? What are they up to? What are they planning? So in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, you sit and discuss. What is Ruto planning? What are his allies planning? What is the president planning as his legacy? And if indeed he wants somebody to succeed him, who is he holding their hand? Who is he having meetings with? Who are the topmost hopefuls? Who will be contending? What are the issues that they are taking to Kenyans? Because if you look at our politics, and this one the media sustained it all and all, because our politics are personality politics. How do we drive away from personality politics, regional balkanization, to real issues of
issue-based
economy?
politics.
Yes, health, sports. How do we turn around our economy that has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic? Now, these are the issues that if you look at the media, we are talking about. Now, if you look at that story about Tuju, and it's about KRA, it boils down to chapter 6. Leadership and integrity. How do we hold our leaders to account? Because every time we talk about our leaders, you hear they've been taken to court about corruption. We are talking about unexplained wealth. But when we go to the elections, these are the people we rally behind. So is it not the work of the media to call out? If Tuju says it, the next step now is let's call KRA. Maybe now that will be the follow-up story.
Right.
If the DP has been filing returns, for how much? So what is his wealth worth? Then now we can ask the other institutions like EACC that they file their wealth declaration, that how much did the DP have? So that when he's coming on board, we know this is it. But that doesn't always happen. It's just political rhetoric. Because now it is an interest to one side of the political divide, we are calling the other side. Tomorrow, the other side will also call something else, and that is how the media goes.
And so we end up getting caught up in their own dance.
Yes.
Because it was C.S. Matiang'i expose. William Ruto comes back and rebuffs and says, in fact, you guys have not even captured everything. In fact, you can add the chicken. You can add my Safaricom shares. You can add this and the other. Yesterday, it's Tuju. You should then go, therefore, and explain. Now we are waiting for somebody else. All those things that you've said, can they not be in one story? Can they not be there? If we really want to set the agenda and say, Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity, Ruto, did he actually declare that he's worth 100 million shillings 6 years ago? Is he worth this much today? If he claims he's worth this much today, is it true? So if Tuju is asking whether he's been filing returns, do we know whether he's been filing returns? Are we likely to actually see a follow-up of that story? And, from experience, we don't. We don't end up seeing KRA. We don't end up seeing KRA being quoted here, or even somebody saying that we went to KRA and we found out that, yes, this particular company, Ruto's farm, is registered under William Samoei Ruto and Rachel Ruto, or it's under a certain company, and this company files returns, or it does not file returns.
Eric, you're in Kenya.
Yes.
Most of the time, you find the politicians, even today, I will tell you, I own 10 companies. And when you go to the registrar of companies, you'll find that maybe none has my name. So as a journalist, I'm supposed to do due diligence. I know this is your company, but there is no paperwork to link you to that company. Do I go and say that this company belongs to you? I cannot, because you will obviously take me to court.
Right.
Yeah, by linking me to somebody, something I don't own. But if you look at the media, I think, Eric, you're a bit harsh on us, because
I'm not being
I
harsh
think,
on us. Remember,
yes,
I'm in the us category.
Yes. Because I think media has done a lot. Look at when Matiang'i came to Parliament and he dished out the list of the 257 officers deployed to the Deputy President. I think the Standard did the next step of even getting the report by IPOA to just break down on how many officers are assigned to the VIPs. And remember, Matiang'i talked about 4,000. The report talks about 11,000. Are we not doing our due diligence to actually counterman what these politicians are saying? And that is our duty. When the issue of the Arun came up, the Turkish guy, I think it was only the Standard that went ahead and even tried to look at the identity of who this Turkish person was based on international media coverage. And we realized that we had two different people. One was a young person, the other one was an old person. So it was up to the government to tell us who exactly were we talking to. So yes, there is a politics aspect of it, but remember, we owe it to our readers, we owe it to our listeners to actually debunk what the politicians say. So if today we've gone with Tuchu's story, I think the next follow-up will be now to countermand what he had said.
Mhm.
He talked about the deputy president's daughter being the deputy ambassador in Italy. Now we owe it to the readers to follow that and see were they involved with the company in Aror Kimwarer and the Italians. So that yes, we are flying statements, but can we countermand those statements?
Right.
Yeah.
Rosen, you mentioned that, that we're essentially giving the people what they want to hear, giving the people what they are most interested in, that if they were asleep and they woke up and they picked it up, politics would be the first thing that they wanted to see. At the same time, we hear every day, that people are saying, why can't we focus on this? Why are we not looking at this particular issue? So is it that, again, that audiences have been conditioned to think that it's actually politics that they're interested in? If we were not to cover politics, we would not see an uptake of the media. Would we not see an uptake of these?
We will see an uptake, but the uptake will be low.
Okay.
Because if you look at the statistics every single day, and if you look at the coverage across media platform, you'll find that at least every single day that politics flies across. Even if it is a disaster story that we have on the headline, you will not miss a political story tacked somewhere across that story. Even if it is a celebrating story like our athletes who won the other day, you will still find a political story tacked somewhere. Why? Because that is what the audience wants. And I told you that if you look at the media currently, and for them to stay afloat, it's about the reader audience. What does the reader want? So at the end of the day, when we do our data, you look at it and look how many people read our content, how many people read the political content. If you look at the Standard like today, you'll find we have the Financial Standard. We always have very good stories about economy. You will find they will have traction. But still, the politics is competing along the way with the economical stories. When you go to the health stories, no single day will you not miss a health story.
Right.
The COVID issues are there, HIV in terms of drugs, TB, malaria, and all that. And we do cover them. But just look at the traction that each of these content attract. You'll still find politics at the top. So at the end of the day, when you sit in a decision table and decide what do we go with, you cannot ignore politics. Yeah.
We've also been accused of not giving in-depth analysis or even investigations. So if you look at the investigative stories that have been published, say in the last 10 years, either in the papers, on radio, on TV, they've got their own traction. True?
Yes.
When is the current MP, Mohammed Ali, was here working in KTN and he was doing the Paruwanja Lami Hadarati stories, people still remember and talk about those stories, the investigative side of stories. How much emphasis is given on investigations, on going deeper and in-depth, and, for example, establishing, okay, so this is what Matiang'i has told us, and William Ruto denies owning any piece of land under ADC in Mutara, Laikipia County. Going deeper and establishing and finding out who actually owns this particular piece of land. If the Standard had written this story, and they did in 2017, the Standard had actually published a story in 2017 saying there's a piece of land in Laikipia County that has a security base inside, is fully guarded by armed police officers, and people in the neighborhood say it belongs to some senior government official, and then the senior-most security official in the country comes to Parliament and says, this piece of land belongs to William Ruto. And then William Ruto comes and says, it doesn't belong to me. How do we inform the people? How do we make sure that the people then get to know who owns this piece of, where is it exactly? Are there police officers today? Are they deployed today? How do we do that?
Yeah, Eric, that's a good aspect that we also pursue the investigative stories. But remember, an investigative piece cannot be done within a day or 2 days. Some even take a year for that story to come out. And you've just talked about the Muhammad Ali stories. Mostly there were stories done for months before we finally have the story pieced together. And yes, those are stories that are done, but remember, it also comes with the financial aspect of it, the time aspect of it, and the real keen interest in establishing what is happening. I can't say that currently, as we are talking, there are no reporters that are working on this story. But yes, if they're working on it, it is not a story that we will see today or tomorrow or in a month's time. But it's a story that the reporter must take their time, dig in, put all the pieces together, so that when we run the story, if the deputy president says, I don't own this piece of land, we are actually having voices or documents to back our story and say, as much as the Interior Cabinet Secretary spoke in Parliament, which is privileged, and he could drop any statement there, we have actually done our due diligence and found that indeed what he said was a truth. Or indeed we've done our due diligence and we found that, yes, as much as people are saying this land belongs to the deputy president, it doesn't belong to the deputy president. But that is something that cannot be done in a day or a week.
Let's go to the phone lines. We'd like to hear from you, 0719-012-600. Also, you can post your comments on social media, SpiceFM KE on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Does the media have the finger on the pulse of the nation? Are we reporting what really matters to the people, or are we reporting what we think matters to the people? Look at the headlines that John is projecting. The headlines in the Standard in the last month. This is the month of August. Ruto Raila. Eyes on hardliners. Decisive moment for Oka. Uhuru calls for another Raila Oka. Uhuru talks make or break for BBI. Death blow to be Ruto Raila. Ruto sustains attack on rivals. Uhuru's tough task on Oka Raila. Uhuru, the problem with his deputy.
So question is, and this one question that's coming up now, I think actually interesting, Rosin. How can public interest consistently be only politics, and yet their lives revolve around health, food, education? And we're saying this is what Kenyans are interested in. However, on a daily basis, you hear Kenyans crying, the economy is suffering, we can't buy, there's not enough filling for our shilling. We're not able to get... Their lives revolve around all these other issues: security, safety, education, health, food. But we're saying that the interest lies squarely in politics. How do we see that balance?
We just said, when I started, I just said that politics cuts across. Even when you talk about health, if there is no good political will, we'll just be talking about health every day and nothing is resolved. If we talk about the economy, and yes, even the president has talked about it, that during the COVID time, we're not able to collect enough revenue. You remember even the revenue streams had shrunk. The counties were not getting their funds. But at the end of the day, it was still politics. You remember even the releasing of the tranches, the monthly tranches from Treasury. You remember there were the talks that they have to clear the pending bills. They have to start with the initial ones, and people were talking about whom do you know to clear those bills. So that's why you see every single day, even as we talk about politics, it's what we are looking at. It's 1 year to the next election. These people who are coming out to tell us that they are going to contest, what have they done? The deputy president is in government. He has delinked himself from the Big Four agenda. And he's saying that in my government, I'll do 1, 2, 3, which I'm not doing. We have Raila, who is the opposition leader, who had a handshake and is in government. During this time, what has he done? So when we talk about that, it's the politics, the trade-in that we are now seeing. You see now this person was so bad, today is an angel. The other one was an angel, now today is a devil. So you see, we are balancing with this, because at the end of the day, what the meetings, the behind-the-scene deliberations, what are they aiming at?
All those things that you've said, Rosalind, those ones.
Yes.
True, 100%. However, that's not the coverage that they get. The coverage they're getting is this one insulting the other one. Huyu ni mganga, hapana mimi sio mganga. That is the coverage that they're getting. Not, were you in government in 2017? Were you in government in 2018? Are you living in a government house today as a deputy president and claiming that you're not the deputy president of this country?
And that you're not part of government.
And not part of government. That's not what we're reading in the papers. Let's go to the phone line. Ed in Nanyuki, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Very well.
A very interesting conversation. How are you?
I'm good.
Now, here's the thing. I beg to differ. I may not be in your line of work, but I beg to differ. Because I think the power of media is information. I'm going to give you for an example. Before I became an ardent fan of SpiceFM, there were other breakfasts I used to listen, but I could never relate to them. But then a regular and team comes, SpiceFM comes, and I got stuck to it. Why? Because there was information that really affects the country that we air them. And I think when you put so much airplay into politics, you may think that is what people want, but people are tired of politics themselves. I'm going to give you an example. When there was BBI, there was a BBI heat, there was a BBI temperature. Actually, for the first time, BBI iliangushwa, guys, the public breathed a sigh of relief. Because actually, they were practically tired of BBI. BBI was just being aired on TV, on radio, on newspapers, and actually some people, they were like, because we are not interested. They were just being given airplay. Look at this. Currently, I'm going to tell you this. Remember, there was a time we had a drive. Actually, celebrities were having concerts to feed people in those upper regions of the country. I remember there were trucks which were being flagged off at the Uhuru Park, and it was from people fundraising. Why did they fundraise? Because it was aired in the media, and people are saying that clearly people are getting hungry.
Thank you, Ed.
But if you divert,
Ed, thank you. Let's hear from other callers as well. Karanja in Naivasha, good morning.
Good evening, Eric and Du, and the Mweshimua there.
It caught you.
He's a member of parliament or he's a senator.
Without portfolio.
Is an editor here.
He's an editor.
She is a group political editor at the Standard Group.
Political analyst, yeah?
Editor.
Editor, thank you very much. I have my friend. Now, let me put a task to the editor there. I want to echo the sentiment given by the editor there, because everybody who is now standing up to become the president had been ministers in the previous government. See, somebody like Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi had been the finance minister, Kalonzo Musyoka had been the vice president, Ruto had been the minister for agriculture, Raila had been the prime minister, he had been a member for parliament for Angata. These shenanigans, these people coming and telling us, let us vote this person for the change of Kenyans. In fact, they are ridiculing Kenyans.
So, Karanja.
Now, yes.
So, does the media have the pulse? Do you understand why the media then would put these headlines the way we put the headlines out? Giving the prominence to these leaders and understanding what they're saying and what they're thinking.
I think the media plays a vital role in making sure that Kenyans have the right information, given the fact that Article 39 of the new constitution guarantees this. The media information to the people.
Okay.
I think the media, they are playing a vital role. Thank you very much, Eric.
Asante Karanja. Renson in Ngong, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you guys?
We're well, thanks.
I feel, like you guys play a very good, a very important role in the society. You're protected, even the Constitution. But it's something I wanted to point out. That day I was having a conversation with the 92 board, and I asked him, "Do you know Kenneth Matiba?" He said no. I asked him, "Do you know Martin?" He said no. I asked him, "Do you know Paul Monte?" He said no. So I wanted to say, you guys can see the important gap by educating and letting people know who are these people who are all over this place telling us what they want to do for the country, and who are they? Yesterday, where were they? What were they doing? But the majority of voters in Kenya currently don't know who Ruto was in 1992. They don't know where he was in 2007. You ask them whether they know about post-election violence, they don't know what that is. So anyway, I think you guys, of course, you can lift your standard, especially when I listen to the vernacular stations. Every time I listen to them, I get very annoyed.
Lorenzen, I think we've lost him. Professor Abagi in Nairobi, good morning.
Morning, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Yes.
Does the media have the pulse of, have its finger on the pulse of the nation?
Thank you, sir. I think, but personally, I'm a researcher and I've been in this country for a long time. Yeah, morning. And the only thing I would say is that I think the media
Prof,
has lost
please
it.
switch off your radio in the background.
Okay.
It's creating a confusion.
I think the media has lost it in the sense that we are too much in description of things which really don't inform the reader or the listener or whoever is really interested in finding out who is who in politics. Even what is being discussed there and the Mheshimiwa is talking about, the media is supposed to inform. The media is supposed to educate. The media is supposed to really marshal the masses to understand things. Now, if you look at how the media has been reporting things in the last, let's say, 6 months, it is based on individuals. But that individual thing is a description of who is calling who is connecting with who is saying who is losing, who is gaining. Really, the media should be telling us, especially now when we are having only probably less than a year to election. They should be telling us who are these candidates, what were they in the last 5 years, what did they do in the last 10 years, so that people understand. For example, I know yesterday's demagogues are today's angels. Yesterday's people who really were fighting against unity of this country are now talking about unity. People who participated in organizations which really pleased Kenyans a lot of money are now the angels, are now the leaders. The media is expected, really, go back, look at these people and tell us who are they 20 years ago, who are they 10 years ago, who are they. For example, the other day, I had a leader telling people that the biggest scandal in Kenya since independence was BBI, a lie. And this person was a member of YK92. YK92 could be the biggest scandal of this country. But we are just describing things, and that description ends up being very superficial. The headline bans XYZ has done that, but if you go inside, there's nothing. The media needs to really raise their standards of analysis and also causality of things, not just describing superficially. Even if you describe, but I need to understand. Candidate X, who is this candidate?
That's
candidate
true. Thank
Y,
you very much, Professor.
What is this coalition?
Thank you very much, Professor Abagi. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. You've been with us since the top of the hour. The conversation continues on SpiceFM 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. Today, we are positioning the media right there on the cross and asking, this one or Barabbas? And already it's on the cross. Keep it right here.
This is The Situation Room The only way to
Well, this
start
conversation
your
continues
day.
into the next hour.
Spice
Rosalind
up
will be here with us, right? Rosalind Obala is the group political editor at the Standard Group PLC. And so, yes, we're calling her Mheshimiwa because she's the political editor. It's not because she actually sits there in Parliament. She is the political editor. She's the one who looks at all these things that are happening and looks at the political angle to them. And then she finds a way of telling the story. And that's what we're discussing today. Are we giving too much prominence to politics and Rosalind's desk? And not any other story. Keep it right here. A very, very good morning to you, and thank you very much for tuning in. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. 7 elephants have invaded Jimba Primary and Secondary School in Rabai area in Kilifi County. Academic activities have been disrupted as students joined parents and teachers in chasing the elephants. It's reported that the animals came from Mtandikeni and passed a private school in the county before passing through the office of the Deputy Chief of Ruruma Ward and then heading to the schools. Currently, the elephants are being chased to Ngwenzeni.
Wakafukuzwa na wananchi wakakimbia mpaka mtoni la Jimba huku, kisha wakapiga bautani tena wakarudi kama walikuwa narudi saidi hiyo lakini hawakufika. Kutoka saa wakaja kupitia kwa ofisi ya chifu ya chifu wa huku Jimba, ndio wakaja wakafika shule ya Jimba wakapiga bautani tena vile wanafukuzwa, so wanaelekea maeneo ya Ngwenzeni.
Firefighters are still battling a huge fire at Mlolongo Center, Machakos County. Property of unknown value has already been destroyed. Police say the cause of fire is still unknown, but investigations have been launched. So far, no fatality has been reported in the incident. Health Muthui Cargo is today expected to receive donations of ultra-modern deep freezers for COVID-19 vaccine storage from the Japanese ambassador at Afya House. This comes as concern has been raised over the rise of vaccines coming into the country and the ability by the government to provide enough storage facilities that will keep the vaccines safe for human use. About 3.6 million Kenyans are currently facing acute hunger. Country Manager Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, John Masharia, while being interviewed on SpiceFM Situation Room, also says our food production isn't enough for the number of people the country holds.
The number of people who are going through acute hunger are actually about 3.6 million. And to remember is that Kenyans, we grew at a rate of about 1 million people a year. So by 2030, we'll possibly have 10 million more people that we need to be feeding. And in the same context, our food production has not necessarily caught up with the rest of the world. So if we think about maize, I think on average our national production is about 1.5 metric tons per hectare, vis-a-vis countries that are producing 5 to 8 to 10 metric tons per hectare.
He further says climate change is to blame for food shortage as we've been experiencing drought, locust invasion, among other attacks on our food production chain.
Kenya as a country has not been spared from the vagaries of climate change. So we have increased weather variability. So we are seeing increased floods, we are seeing increased droughts. But we've also seen increases in pests and diseases. The whole of last year, beyond having COVID, we actually had to battle a locust invasion that actually was in about 27 counties in this country. The other important thing is to think about the relationship with our environment. We are seeing increased acidification of our soils. And also just to note that we're also seeing that more people are converting farmland into real estate.
Thousands of students who are eligible to join universities after taking their KCSE exams are still unaware of their fate so far after failing to receive letters to join the universities despite the registration process starting yesterday. This is even after KUPS officials promised a smooth transition from secondary to university.
I wish to assure you that the board has carried out this placement process with utmost transparency and accountability, guided by merit and the choice of the student.
We enable applicants to align their selection of courses with their interests based on their performance and career aspirations.
Sadly, some of the students were forced to use letters from the COOP's website to report and found themselves at a crossroads after being asked to show an official letter of enrollment. This comes as it has been reported that many students have not yet received national IDs, despite it being an important document in the process of obtaining a loan from HELB. HELB CEO Charles Ringera, however, says 3.2 billion shillings has already been allocated for funding for new students, although only 27,000 students have applied for the loan so far. Hundreds of traders and business owners encroaching on 9 road corridors in South Bay, Nairobi, have less than 3 weeks to find an alternative location for their businesses. This follows a 30-day notice by the Kenya Urban Roads Authority to traders to pull down all structures erected along the roads, failure to which the properties will be demolished. The roads include Kapiti, Aoko, Plainsview, Mwangeka, Sore, Muchumbi, Daidai, Mukenya and Mariakani. And in sports, National Super League champions FC Talanta will require between 50 million shillings to 60 million shillings to effectively participate in the 2021-2022 Football Federation Premier League season. Club Board Secretary Douglas Ratemo says they do not have enough money to cater for salaries and allowances. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, well, coming out of traffic hour soon, but still hot and heavy on Mombasa Road, the city centre. Everything has joined in the city centre. Gong Road, getting to the roundabout at the city mortuary, also is moving very, very slowly. Today, coming out of Westlands, also a slow move into the city. Industrial area moving along very slowly as well. Joko Road emptying onto Landis Road, and then at that Kamkunji roundabout, getting into the CBD, very, very slow this morning. Certain parts of the roads are actually wet because of the early morning sprinkle, so you have to be very careful. That could attest to why people are going a lot slower on the roads this morning. So let's watch out for that. It's their normal morning traffic and nothing too much out of the ordinary, at least not just yet. We'll keep an eye on things and see how it goes. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, that's how you can get in touch with us. Text us as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
7
your
minutes
day.
after 9 on this 7th day of the 9th month of 2021. Welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversations, 4th and final hour this morning. Today's proverb: a proverb does not translate itself. A proverb does not translate itself. That's a Maasai proverb. Our guests, still in the studio, Roslyn Obala, Group Political Editor for the Standard Group. She's here with us. She's been with us since 8 o'clock. We are asking ourselves whether the media has its finger on the pulse of the nation, and we want to hear from you. We're opening up the conversation, social media and phone calls.
So there's a comment here, and Rosen, just to hear your opinion on this. Kenyans are addicted to politics. Even health, security, job creation issues are not responded to as much as political posts are. Yet, we complain about the media in our typical hypocritical character. What do you think about that?
Very true. Very true. Because if you look at even the leadership in terms of addressing other issues as opposed to politics, the prominence that they give those responses is not like if it is a political statement.
Do we then have a responsibility or a role to shape that? Like you said, we set the agenda. If we clearly see that political rhetoric is going to get people, just commenting and reacting and posting comments on social media and all, versus the things that would affect the people in terms of thinking. For example, you have reported a lot about Parliament. So Parliament sits and discusses the budget. Parliament raises the debt ceiling. Parliament is raising the debt ceiling and giving conditions to the National Treasury, but you must open the debt register. And then the National Treasury does not open the debt register. But the conversation that happens in Parliament the next time is some political back and forth of one calling the other. You have a bigger shoe, you have size foot 12 and all, and that is what gets coverage. Don't you think that that is where we ought to come in and shape that agenda and show, as all these things are happening, meanwhile, this is still pending. As we're talking about, as the Security on Administration and Security summons CS Matiang'i to come to Parliament, the last time they had summoned him was about the insecurity in West Pokot, and this is what he said, or he did not appear. What happens is West Pokot, there's a 6 to 6 curfew. And yet the National Security CS has not appeared before the Parliamentary Committee to respond to that. Laikipia, there's now a 6 to 6 curfew. The National Security CS has not appeared before this committee to respond to that. Putting those things into perspective, don't you think we have a role to play there?
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, actually, we have a role. But remember again, when the CS is called to come to Parliament, they can only be summoned after snubbing the invite for a while. Mm-hmm. Now, this goes back to the reflection of society, because our politicians are our true reflection. Now, today you find that when we had the issue of the Deputy President's security, it was a priority, to the extent that we even had a senator collect signatures from his fellow senators to force a special sitting to discuss this matter. But when it comes to the regular insecurity in the country, they will issue a statement. They will say, we'll call the CS. They will come back again. The chair of the committee will come back again to Parliament and say, we are still waiting for the CS to come and respond to our questions. They will come again and say the same, and the story continues. So you find that you will have a number of pending security issues that have not been responded to in Parliament. And I think reporters have done it. Personally, I have put the CS on the spot. There was a time he even wrote a letter to the AG questioning why he should appear in Parliament. And we actually had to remind him that the Constitution obligates him to appear in Parliament, with the Senate or the National Assembly. He has to appear and respond to questions. Now, he is even the chair of the Cabinet Committee on Implementation. That means that as much as it covers the CAP of the Interior CS, he also covers the same for the other cabinet secretaries. So it means that he should ensure that all the other cabinet secretaries also respond to questions in Parliament. We have the CS Petroleum and Mining. I can't remember the last time I even saw him in Parliament. He has, I think, the most unanswered questions in Parliament. They have even issued summons. He has never appeared. So now it boils down to, do we have a Parliament that lacks teeth? Because you see, we have a Parliament that should be able to summon a CS, and if the CS does not come or his ministry does not respond within the required period, then needs to sponsor a censure motion. But what happens when it's done? It is political. You find that the person sponsoring the motion is actually seeking a kickback or something. And the day of coming to present the motion, they don't turn up in the House.
So then what plays out in the story, Rosalind, is the political aspect.
Yes.
And what does not form a story is that this individual failing to show up when summoned could affect Kenyans, the economy, in one way or another. That's not the side of the story that comes out. The side of the story that comes out is the political side, that who's trying to stab it at whom because this individual has not shown up. Whereas there is a whole mountain of other things that then could be focused upon as a result of this very same thing.
Actually,
the reluctance to show up, for example, and these are the effects that would have on the country, as opposed to the political sideshows as a result of this individual not showing up.
I think the media has done a lot from the aspect of the political rhetoric of ministers not turning up and not getting these questions. But also on the other side, like Eric talked about the issue of the budget. I think the media has been consistent, and we also have a budget office in Parliament that actually advises the MPs on how to manage our debt, on how to allocate funds, on the usage of those funds. But remember, this is an office that is there but can only advise. So they can either implement or not implement. And we have always gone to every report that they have released just to ask, these are the allocations to these particular ministries. What has happened? The last report was even talking about the Big Four being a mirage, that nothing has been implemented. Look at the housing structure. We have allocated billions, but nothing has happened. And the media has covered this. But it depends with how people look at the stories that we come out. Because when you put the country, the MPs on the spot, remember when they were increasing the debt ceiling from 6.5 to 9 trillion, there were issues that why should we raise our debt ceiling when we continue getting loans? And by then, the budget committee chair, who was Kimani Ichung'wah, told us, no, we were consolidating our budget, our loans, because we were servicing expensive loans from China and the others. So we were now consolidating so that we can buy them off with IMF and World Bank. And the media covered all this. Now, this is a case now we are back to the drawing board, and now we are talking about from 9 trillion to 12 trillion. The same MPs who are opening up the floodgate for the budget. So even as much as we are having all this politics, we have always also called out on the other side that these are the issues that are pending in Parliament. But where the challenge again comes in is that if you look at the structure of Parliament, we have no cabinet secretaries in Parliament. We have the chairs of committees who represent these cabinet secretaries in the House. So you find that when a matter is raised in the House and a chairman comes and reads a statement from the CS, if there are subsequent questions to that, they will say, we are going back to the minister again to get further information. So you see now, this is where now we are going with these suckers. Yes. We are raising issues, but
you see, Rosemary, Rosalind, this is where now I think we drop the ball. Because we don't mainstream these issues. If we were to mainstream the issue and show that is there an actual failure of Parliament just because a cabinet secretary does not sit in Parliament, or does the structure currently in Parliament empower the committees to get questions satisfactorily? Such that the committee chair coming to respond, this is a question that we got and we went and posed it to the CS. And we asked several angles to this question. And this, what we've gotten from the CS is not satisfactory, but this is what he's given us so far. Because that's the job. And the person who's asked is even invited to come as an amicus to the sitting. And he can even throw the question himself or herself to the CS in question. But we don't mainstream those things. What we do is we'll put in, you've just given that example. If John Munyes has not appeared before Parliament or National Assembly or Senate, and he has the most number of summonses which haven't been honored, then that story should be a headline. But if there was a motion, a censure motion, would start looking at it from Munyes, is it Tanga or is it this other side? And then the political group from Turkana or from the north will issue a statement and say, we feel like we are being attacked, and that is what will be in the headline. Not the fact that John Munyes has the highest number of unanswered summonses to Parliament. We don't give it that. We want to go with what is easy, what's likely to be the catchy headline. Why?
We have tried. I can't say that the media is perfect and they've done enough, but I think we have tried to highlight some of the stories. Remember, in this Parliament, this is a Parliament where the committee chairs were unveiled at State House. Now, what does the standing order say? You have to elect chairs from the committee. So first, they were unveiled in Parliament, in State House. Second, when they came to Parliament, remember, Article 125 empowers the committees to summon anybody to give evidence before the committee. Now, when the chair of that committee sits, he sits as a speaker, a representative. And most of the work of Parliament is effected in the committees. But what do we see? We see committee chairs and members who are very cozy with witnesses. At that particular time when they come, that is when now you also connect. We find MPs who are even defending the witnesses in that committee. So how do you expect them to discharge their duty and hold these guys to account when they're very cozy? And you remember in 2018, Justin Muthui actually read the Riot Act to the members when he was saying, we know some of the members are actually using the committees to extort, look for jobs for their members. And this is what has killed Parliament. Because you see, this is the power that has been bestowed on you, so that we are able to get those responses and able to address public issues. But we are not seeing that. And I think media has repeatedly reported that. Maybe there are those that have not been on the headline. But there are those that have been on the headline, because personally I covered the extortion on the sugar reports. And it was a headline for a while that the MPs were being bribed as low as 2,000 shillings to drop and water down a report. So yes, media has done. We might have not done enough, but I think media has tried its best.
We want to hear from you, 0719-012-600 and SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Many comments coming in. You can read a couple as we wait for calls as well.
All right. Okay. So some of those that we had saw, well, some media houses, yes, others no. It's like today media houses are paid to taint the image of others. It's true we are in a political situation, but can't the media do something different for a change? And I think that issue of, brown envelope journalism has come out sometimes. That, I mean, and it's a myth that needs to be debunked, if so, that there are those who will then take a coin to tilt a story in a certain direction, or place someone as the subject of a story for a long period of time for them to gain some kind of political traction.
I think I'll give an example of the Standard, because if you look at the way the Standard structure is set up, then the decision is not an individual decision.
Right.
If it was an individual decision, then I will say that because of where I sit today, I'm going to give Tuju prominence for the next 5 days.
Right.
But remember, this is a team of expert editors from different platforms, and we all sit and agree that what is the best content that we can go with. And what I always sit and believe is that if you do a story every day and people call you and tell you you're doing a good thing, you're not doing a good thing. You must have people saying, we are not happy with the story you did, while others say, we support what you did.
Then you know,
you know you are doing something. But when you have everybody saying, Standard, you're doing the best thing, your stories are the best and all that, then you're losing the point. Because at every given time, there is a story that will appeal to somebody and disapproved by another person. Yeah.
Audrey in Kino, good morning. Hi, Audrey. Are you online, Audrey? Okay, Godfrey says the media has the power, but it cannot because of financial income, and some are affiliated to politicians, hence driving the agenda in favor of the owners. Samina says, I'm no longer interested in news because it's the same from Sunday to Sunday. Nothing new but politics, and we need programs like yours to shine light on other issues. Sunday to Sunday is just same. Politics. Yes, you see, the newspaper is many pages. Today's paper is 48 pages. The Standard is...
And the headline
and
has how many stories?
And the Nation is 39 pages.
We start with the headline.
Yeah. On the front page,
yes,
the one that's given prominence in the Nation, Uhuru's allies take on Ruto's overreaches. Then there are other stories. Face of joblessness, away with roadblocks as police bosses reinstate ban on barriers, postpone 2022 polls, ex-senator asks the court why COVID-19 pain is not yet over for firms, British Airways resumes direct flights to Nairobi. The Standard, Tuju puts Ruto on KRS radar. That is the big one. And then the next big one is Jubilee or UDA, Waigoro's options. Then we go into CBC pushing parents to the academic wall. It has 2 pages coverage inside.
Yes.
Why university admissions are in a mess. It's on page 4. Center that birthed slum hospitals, 24. Forex reserves deep by 52 billion shillings. We're talking about Tuju puts Ruto on KRS radar. Player dies after 39 years in a coma. That's in the sports pages. All right. Inside in the Financial Standard today, firms sacrifice workers for big profit. It's not that the stories are not covered. It's not that the stories that you're telling are not told. Are they given prominence? I think that's where the question comes in. Are they given prominence, or what is number 1 and what is number 12 Audrey is back online. Good morning, Audrey.
Morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well.
Morning,
Good morning, Audrey.
morning to our guest. Sorry.
Morning, Audrey.
What is your name?
Roslyn Obala.
Morning, Rosie. I feel like the media is not doing enough. I will give an example of what happened during the elections in 2017 when people were being killed in Kisumu. And what was happening is people were coming to social media and complaining on social media of how the killing is going on in Kisumu, people being put in body bags, being dumped into the lake. And everyone on social, it was all over social media, but it was nowhere in the media. In fact, in the mainstream media, what they were saying is what the CS was saying, that it is false news, instead of actually finding out if this is true or not. And on most occasions, it is about chasing the ratings. Like she said, it's a business. So more often than not, it is always about chasing the ratings and the business side and not their obligation to the country.
All right. Good points, Audrey. Audrey, are you well? You sound low today.
Yeah, I'm well.
Good. Thank you very much for your call.
Thank you too.
Sante. How do you strike that balance? Because when we say that the headlines are basically clickbaiting or they're chasing the numbers, but those numbers are indicative that this is what the people are interested in.
Yeah. When I started, I told you that, you see, at the end of the day, you also balance and get your data. If today these are the headlines in the various platforms and the media houses, and then in the evening you come and look and audit and see how are the sales, then you find that the political stories were actually the ones that were selling, the circulation or the reader revenue. We've generated a lot on the political stories. So as much as we are balancing, remember today Standard, we even have the CBC.
Yeah.
And it's not now, it's a story we have sustained. It's a special story that we have been on.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's only the politics part of it, but we're trying to balance. At the end of the day, we are giving you the politics for those who want politics, but we are also giving prominence to the other stories. You might not have every story as a big headline, because the headline can only be one and catchy for people to be attracted and buy the paper. But the other stories are also given prominent, and that's why they're puffed on page one, just to give you a direction on where you can get these stories. Yes. Right. So I think it's a delicate balance, but at the end of the day, you also have to remain afloat to set the agenda and also to engage your audience.
What do you think would happen if there was a deliberate push, for example, to black out politics for a certain period of time? What do you think? What do you think
collapse
right now?
Before you answer that question, let's hear from Maina. Maina is on the line. Good morning, Maina.
And good morning, SpiceFM.
Good morning
to you.
Great topic you have today. I have always been of the opinion that the media in Kenya, of course, they know their job, and we expect that they do it to their best of their
professionally,
ability.
yes.
Yes, yeah, and of course we know that they inform, they educate, and there's one role that they play, but they tend to be a bit mischievous with it, and that's called opinion shaping or influencing opinion. And I think that's the one that carries the day most of the time. And as much as I agree, yes, they inform us all the time, they educate us on many topics. But when it comes to shaping opinion, I think that is the role that takes the day according to what we see every day. So they are quick to probably sensationalize a story. And it's true what the lady is saying, that most of the time they ride on a wave of a story that probably very sensational. And therefore they want to publish something that to them they just they're innocent. They're giving information on what is happening on the ground, but sadly in their editorial rooms they know what they're doing. They are shaping opinion. They are influencing mindsets. And most of the time, they would feign, like they're very innocent. But I think they have an agenda. They all, under every headline, under every story, there is an agenda by the media, either to lean towards a particular side, but not always to inform and educate. They always have an agenda. Most of the time is to shape an opinion, to influence an agenda.
Do you think that agenda is in public interest or in the media's interest? The media house's interest.
Very, very rarely in the public interest. It's often in their own, sorry to say, but selfish interest. The bottom line matters to them. And competition, they want to stay relevant because, for example, the Standard has Nation and other media houses, and among media houses, they want to, every media house want to be on top of the other. So they want to, who has the most sensational headline, who is selling more, who has more readership, who has more coverage. The only way to do that is to appear to be riding on that wave of general acceptance and likability by the public. And what do? Give them what you want. It's just like at home. If you want to be in friendship with your kids, you don't give them vegetables. You give them, give them crackers and sweets and cake. Whereas you know very well you're not helping them, but you want to be in good books with them. You want to be their favorite daddy or their favorite uncle. But that's what the media does.
Thank you, Maina. Thank you. Good day. Ruben Kigame, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Three very quick things. First of all, the unsaid things. Who owns a media house shapes what is prioritized. The capitalistic side of our country is silent about that certain politicians actually own media houses. And there is no day a media house will drum out a position that is contrary to the media owner. There is always bias in every media house. And, when people talk about bias, they think it's always bad. But bias has a way of protecting certain interests. For example, we have religious broadcasters in this house. There's no way they'll drum out certain policies that are anti-religion or whatever the case may be. And so if a politician owns a media house, it will shape the bias, even though that bias will be latent. The other thing is money. Media follows money. And this I speak as a former media owner and also as someone vying for office. I'll just use the office as an example. I would ask our political editor friend how many times Ruben Kigame has made it to the front page of her paper ever since I declared that I'm running for office in April, and even launched officially in July. Those who are able to call the big press conferences and the unsaid aspects I will leave out. Those who are able to marshal maybe a particular clout end up getting the front page. I'm telling a totally different story as a candidate. I'm telling, what the citizen, I believe, needs to hear. But as the language would go, I guess I'm not as sexy a candidate as Ruto, as Raila, who has not even declared, or as Musalia, so that every night we are treated to those three. It's as if we don't exist. So she sets the agenda that Ruben is not significant in the race, even though I'm telling a different story. But so some of that bias will sometimes come out. You don't have to say. So that if you have COVID-19 and you have, someone trying to clear their name, COVID-19 will not be frontline. And that's why all these other stories like the accidents, the cancer, and so on are not sexy enough anymore. So I think we need to go beyond the populist or politically correct way of addressing the issues you have on the table today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ruben. Asante sana. Let's take a break and then we take more calls. And Rosalind, you respond to those, especially what Ruben is saying. So how many times, for example, have you given, as the political editor, this is a politician who is vying to be president of this country. How much space has he received? 26 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. We want to hear from you. 0719-012-600. Does the media in Kenya have the finger on the pulse of the nation?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
All right, it's raining in Nairobi.
The weather
with conditions for most parts of today. Highs of 22 and lows of 13. Mostly sunny conditions in Nakuru at 18. Highs of 24. 21 will be the high in Nyeri, where it's raining at 14. All right, looking into Kisumu, partly sunny conditions. Highs of 29 and lows of 18. Partly sunny in Kakamega at 25 with highs of 28 today. Mombasa is raining as well at 26. Highs of 29. 28 will be the high in Malindi, where it's raining at 27. Outside of Kenya into Kampala, mostly sunny conditions at 22 to go to highs of 28. And Dar es Salaam now raining at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Lagos is wet as well at 24, highs of 29 today. And sunny conditions in a very warm Kinshasa going to highs of 34. Out in Beijing, it's sunny at 27. That'll be the high. Paris, sunny at 16, highs of 31 today. And London today is partly cloudy, actually a major haze over the city at 17, highs of 28. And in New York, very early Tuesday morning at 21, we'll see highs of 27, back down to lows of 21.
Spice up your life. SpiceFM, Nakuru. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to SpiceFM.
To the west of the city, quite a lot of traffic coming out of Westlands, that entire Parklands area, coming down Limuru Road, getting into the CBD today, quite heavy. Kiambu Road also, still a lot of traffic as you then try to approach Muthaiga Square. That's still doing its thing there. Coming off of Jogo Road as well, going towards Landis, not too bad, slowly staving off, but we'll still see some traffic for some time. We're looking at the dregs of early morning traffic in industrial area as well, connecting through the back and joining Enterprise Road is a good way to get you onto Mombasa Road. Mombasa Road, that's another story, continues to have that bottleneck issue between Imara Daima outbound Imara Daima through to the Gateway Mall. All right, getting a little bit better on Langata Road, not as bad as it was, but there's still quite some traffic there. Probably is going to continue through the day. All the construction, make sure that traffic stays with us throughout today. Let's watch out for that. The streets are a little bit slippery because it's early morning rain, so please, guys, be careful. Get where you're going without too much of an accident. SpiceFM KE on Twitter through the day. 40127 is the number to text.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
With Roslyn Obala, Group Political Editor at the Standard Group. Before you respond to some of the questions that Ndu had asked you one, and Ruben Kigame has a couple of observations and a question, let's hear from Seth in Nairobi. Seth, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to the room. So, do you think the media has its finger on the pulse?
I feel like it's a point where we should have a very honest conversation. These media houses, they are private entities, and their core function is to make profit. The fact is that we have moved from the era where the media was totally trying to be open and objective. Currently, what we have is all the media are trying to follow money, like the previous caller said. We've seen other media houses deliberately being trying to be controversial to get more clicks or more readers to their papers. Therefore, if we were to be honest or straightforward, we have major things happening right now which could have been given more headlines, or which is have more headlines than the Ruto and or the political fracas that is going on around right now.
Thank you very much, Seth.
Yeah, that is.
Ownership. Does ownership of media house determine the editorial freedom of the journalists working there?
Yes and no. It depends with the kind of media house. If you look at our constitution, they're supposed to be devoid of corporate entity, advertisement, state influence, and focus on public interest. If you look at the media currently, we've talked about the issue of finances. And even those owners are in business. I wouldn't say that because you run a media house, you have to dictate the editorial content that is coming from the media. Yes, there are some vernacular radio stations that maybe the ownership influence. But a multimedia organization like Standard Group, I think the editorial content is independent. Yes, and that is how it should be. Because, for example, let's say the Standard, if it was being influenced by the ownership, then there's some coverage that we wouldn't expect to read in the papers or see on TV or hear on radio. But the fact that this is a business and it's run by professional people, they're devoid of the editorial decisions. Yeah.
Okay. Still just going, back to that question and saying that, look, if we're saying this is what it really is, if you want to do a litmus test and say, okay, let's look at it and say, are Kenyans really then fueled by this political, almost sycophancy to say that we really want to know what's going on politically, it doesn't matter who said what? If you were to give it a blackout for a number of days, will we see things collapse?
How many days do you want?
How many days?
Just asking.
Even just one day.
Even a day.
Even just one day.
Is it, so will we see things fall apart?
I'm telling you, things will fall apart. Yes.
So truly it is Kenyans.
Yes.
So wait.
It's a true reflection of what the consumption is.
It's a result of the conditioning.
It's not a result of
over many years. If over many years the conditioning has been Mtukufu Rais is the number one story. Okay? That is how we grew up. Mtukufu Rais is the number one story, and it's just reporting what he has done. Nothing more. And then you look at now the other independent media houses, and this is the same thing. The headline is this. And it's not just getting into the in-depth, it's reporting what this political leader has said. Raila tears into Ruto. Ruto fights back into... You can even determine, now that Tuju has put Ruto on KRA's radar, the next headline will be something else about Ruto's people. Uhuru's allies take on Ruto's overreaches.
And people will
You're
want
conditioning.
to...
It's conditioning. We've gotten to a point where it's... So when you don't see that, you're wondering, so Connie, what has happened?
So if that...
I don't buy the paper
so
because
if
I'm
what
wondering
Eric
what's
is saying is accurate, Rosalind, so that means that the other could actually work. So if you do a cold turkey kind of, rip off the Band-Aid and say, look, we're going to now start conditioning in the other way and see, because when you sit down and say Kenyans, when we hear this whole Serikalis idea, they're not saying, oh, please help. No. That what again, talking about health, talking about education, we need good schools in our vicinity, we need this, that, the other thing. So if a conditioning has taken place, so a reconditioning then can also happen to say that, look, let's now focus on the things that are really important that we would ask these same leaders to then come and address and to actually do their job. So is it possible that you could turn, if this is accurate, that Kenyans might have been turned in this direction, is it possible then for the minds to be turned in the opposite direction as well, and now trying to see areas in which perhaps there are gaps that leaders should actually fill? Do you think that would work?
Actually, it can work, because remember, even currently, what conversation are the politicians having? It's about the economy. Remember in 2013, the election, the platform was ICC. And on the other side, it was the Mao restoration, the Raila side. When we came to 2017, we were talking about re-election, and we were also talking about the Big Four agenda. So actually, even now, as we talk about the rebuilding of the economy, it's actually a conversation. Only that the way our people have been coined, if you go to political rallies, and we say this every single day, you go to political rallies, and when politicians start talking about the sugar sector, the coffee sector, you find that the attention is not the same.
It's not the same.
But when a politician say, can I abuse so and so? Can I tell you what they did? Then the attention is 100%, and the crowd will be going up and saying, yes, proceed. So you see, that is how we have actually accustomed ourselves to the extent that even somebody will call you and ask you, so today in politics, what are you having? What has Ruto said? Where is Raila? What has Raila said? That is what people are yearning to hear. So even if today we said our front page is CBC, somebody will be looking at the next page and the next one, where is politics tucked in? So what is Raila saying? Yes, the headline is CBC, but what is the political
what's the news?
Yes, what is happening? So as a political editor, even when I go to the editorial meeting, the question is, so what is the politics of the day? So at every given time when I sit, I have to think, so what is the driving agenda in the political context today? So I wouldn't say that because we have accustomed our readers or listeners to listen to politics, so today can I take a backseat?
Right.
And just say that, okay, we push
let
COVID
mercy career, science and health.
Yes, and bring politics, interweave politics in it. But when I call out the COVID defaulters, the ones who breach the protocols, you find again, if you twist it to the political angle and say these are the politicians caught breaking the COVID rules, again it's passed. Because now again people want to listen, okay, the political contest is in it. But when you talk about numbers and say, okay, now we have 5 million vaccines that have come, Johnson and this one, can you people go and get? Then again, you find that it shifts.
So what does Ruben Kigame need to do then to make the headline? He needs to insult Raila. He needs what?
He doesn't need to insult Raila. He just needs to sustain his campaign. Jimmy Wanjigi just came the other day and is hitting the headlines. He's all over. You can see him having activities, meeting people. Ruben Kagame unveiled, and then the next minute we are not seeing him. We know that currently the COVID rules do not allow them to have public gatherings, but he can actually discuss.
He's been having meetings.
He can be part of the public discourse. We are talking about the COVID vaccines. We are talking about the economy. You want to be a president. What are you bringing fresh? People want alternative.
Well, that's what we were saying. That's what he's discussing on a daily basis, even on his social media platforms and the places that he goes to. But he'll invite media. Media will not come. So he will not get coverage. Why? Because, akwapi Raila. Ati akwapi Raila. He feels that this is what happens in the newsrooms. That you basically have looked at him and placed him just bottom there. So if Raila is out of the country, Ruto has decided today he's sleeping, Kalonzo has decided he's not talking today, Musalia has decided, okay, today he has a meeting at his grandchildren's school. So now let's give this guy called Ruben some coverage.
We just say that consistency and the prominence. You see, again, you can unveil yourself, you are in the political race. But what are you giving alternative? Because if today you come and give me a 10-point agenda and say, Raila and the others, this is what they are for. I am for this. and this is a fresh, new aspect of looking at politics and all that, surely he will get the coverage. But when you go to your social media and list it, your audience and social media audience, we have a conversation with the media and all that, it's very different because the people you're targeting on your social media account are very different from when now you are having a discourse with the media and telling media, this is what I want. And I've seen that with the politicians currently. Most of them, you see, they go to their social media accounts and decide to vent there and that's why you see like the legacy media, when we have to even pick something from your social media, we have to look at what do we pick. We just don't pick everything you put on your social media.
You have to pick what's sensational.
Yes.
Right.
Not sensational. What is important to my readers? What will drive my readers to that your story? Yeah.
You know, tabloids and those who run tabloids will tell you that it's that sensationalism that sells. Sex sells, scandal sells, right?
Any day.
In Kenya, we are saying the sensational politics sells. It's a political rhetoric that sells. Because politics, yes, we can talk about politics here and even look at what Tuju was raising yesterday and start asking those questions.
Yeah.
The ruling party is basically saying that it cannot account for what happened with Aurora and Kimwarer. The ruling party is questioning whether its deputy party leader had a hand in the theft and misappropriation of funds that Kenyans are paying back. The ruling party, those are political angles, but coming from what he said, but no, it's Tuju.
It's the political drama
it's just the drama of it, he has hit back. They're taking on Ruto overreaches. The sensationalism of it is what is selling.
But that is a politics. That is a politics. If Tuju was on the other side, I think the language will be very different. If we did have an handshake now, and the deputy president and the president were still enjoying the bromance, then the discussion will be very different. But now that we have the handshake, you can see even those from the NASA side who are bashing Jubilee side are the people celebrating Jubilee achievements. Yes.
Rosalind. And that's where the BS. That's where the BS is. Yes. The BS is when you see Tuju talking like this and Ruto talking like that, and then Kimani Ichung'wa on one side and the others on that side responding this way, and those on the Kieleweke side and ODM responding the other way. We can just basically say, if you flip the coin, just change the situation, it would be the exact same reaction from the different people. If we don't call out the BS, if we just go with that, make it sound like, oh, now this time Ruto has been pushed to the corner, or this time Ruto is actually come out fighting.
Without pointing in the direction of what this statement could actually mean for the country.
We're giving the context.
As a leading party, why then, as a ruling party, why then do we not see that there's more of a drive towards making sure some of these things actually come out? That there is no, challenge to some of these things, loss of national funds, if that's the case. Why have they been silent about it? It looks like this is an opportunity to take a dig at an individual as opposed to doing something for the better good of the entire nation.
And we have said that because remember, even when Matiang'i came, we said he has not been honoring summons. But this one, he was very early and he was ready to respond and even give extra. So you could see it was a parliamentary process, which was very political, because he used that opportunity to actually bring out the issues that they've not been able to bring out. Again, this is a ruling party that is fighting amongst itself. Remember, the person they are calling out is a deputy party leader of the party. Yeah, so you find that maybe the structures they have within the party, they've not been able, because the only other structure they have is to summon him to appear before the disciplinary committee, because some of the things he has done actually requires him to appear before the disciplinary. So now when you look at him, he's a second in command in the country. Then you use now these avenues now to call him out, which is the politics of the day. Because even the president himself has said, we are now working in tandem with ODM. If you look at the Political Parties Act, that is already a breach of the Act. Yes.
How will you know if and when there were to be a shift in the interests of the consuming audience? How would you know that Kenyans now actually are interested in going in a different direction? If the finger is really on the pulse, what would you then be able to use as indicators to say, actually, you know what, folks, people are shifting in this direction? If it is really their desires and their interests that we now are delivering in broadcast, in print, whatever, how will we know that, all right, people are shifting and are demanding more?
I think just what we are doing like now today, we are getting direct feedback from listeners. We have our data analysis, and you can actually look at the kind of stories that people read and how long they take in reading a story. So from that, actually, you can gauge and see where was the interest. Like now, when we have the report on CBC, you can find that people are really taking their time to understand what is actually happening. When you read the political stories and you find that people are taking more than 2 minutes, 3 minutes, then you look at it and you say, there's actually some interest in this story. We need to pursue it further. And take it further instead of just doing a story and leaving it at that. If you find that there is an angle of a health story that people are actually interested in, because again, with the invent of fake news, disinformation, misinformation, there is so much that comes on social media that when you go and look at it, you find that it is fake news. The other day, there was a letter from KRA, and people were talking about KRA going after the deputy president, yet it was a fake letter. So again, that is where now the media has to do again their due diligence and debunk. So not that everything that is on the social media is actually news that we need to pursue.
I think we also have this other role of calling out the duty bearers. Raphael Tuju sits in the cabinet purely on account of him being the Secretary General of the party. And this is the ruling party. So he's coming to advise whether the manifesto that this party campaigned with is being implemented. Okay? If Raphael Tuju comes and issues a statement where he's calling out the deputy party leader on matters where he's pointing a finger and accusing him of corruption, how did you acquire your wealth? How did you do this and the other? We ought to raise a question to Raphael Tuju. So as a party, what is it that you're doing? This country has a constitution. This country has state organs. This country has institutions. There's an institution called the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. If you're raising questions and concerns about Ruto's ethics, where do you go to? Do you come to us, the media? Or do you go to also at the same time go to the EACC? Have you gone to the EACC? Have you pointed the EACC towards that direction? Have you pointed the EACC towards the fact that this is what the deputy president is on record as having said he's worth 100 million shillings.
And then demanded
and this is what, can we actually do an audit?
Yeah.
He has publicly come out to say that, yes, he owns a piece of land in Taita Taveta. Yes, he has this chicken. Yes, he has helicopters. Yes, he has. Has he updated that? If we're not putting those questions to Raphael Tuju, then he'll come out and just be blurting out and telling us, yeah. Or Ruto himself will be coming and telling us, in fact, since last week, I decided to add some 30,000 more chicken. Now I'm the one who's selling all chicken in this country. In fact, I'm exporting chicken to Ethiopia. If we don't put them to task over those, then don't you feel we would be failing the public? The same public that's looking for the sensational news, but also it's also looking for the meat.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eric, because you see, if Raphael Tuju issued the statement yesterday, you saw he was flanked by members of parliament. And those are the members of the National Management Committee. So when he issued the statement, I don't think he issued in his capacity as Raphael Tuju, the CS. But I think that is a position of Jubilee as a coalition. So I think when we had the press conference yesterday, those are some of the questions. Because you see, when Raphael Tuju speaks, when the vice chair speaks, or any of the official members speak, that means that is also the position of the party leader, who is the president. As much as he's not been coming out to speak about the issues of the party, but through his various officers, he has been speaking his mind. So I think in that press conference, those are the issues that we should have asked, because if Jubilee is a ruling party, then it has all the instruments and everything to ensure that the deputy president that they are having issues with is held to account. So that by the time that they were giving us the statements, we should have also seen either a letter to EACC or a letter to DCI or KRA to tell us that this is what we have initiated
as a result of this information.
2, they also talked about the deputy president's daughter being the deputy ambassador in Italy. So they should also tell us that there was no due diligence that was done, but she got the job on the basis that she is the daughter of the second in command. So that again, it tells Kenyans that when the deputy president talks about hustlers, he's not a hustler because he sits in the high and mighty and they can call the shots whatever he wants. So I think that one, on our part as a media, we need to take the story forward and just ask, so that when these statements come out, just like when we did the one for Matiang'i, we also now need to do this one of the government, because this is the government of the day. And they have all the instruments. So even if they're talking, I'm sure they even have the NIS reports to even tell us, as we speak,
this is what he owns. Yes. Thank you very much, Rosalind, for joining us.
Thank you.
Asante sana. Rosalind Obala is the group political editor at the Standard Group. Asante for joining us, and thank you very much for tuning into today's conversation. Today's proverb is just like that. It's a proverb and it cannot translate itself. That's it. It's a Maasai proverb.
You do it.
Yeah, you translate it the way we've said it. Nduoko and Eric Latif will be here with you again tomorrow morning. Keep it right here for more conversations. Good morning and have a lovely day. It's now 10 a.m.
Thank you.